Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to the QALBUN Leadership Webinar. I hope everyone is well and safe wherever you are. Before we begin shortly, there are some house rules which all who are here are expected to observe. Today's webinar will be divided into 4 different parts. Number 1, the welcoming speech. Number 2, the keynote speech. Number 3, the 2-minute sessions with Q&A. Number 4, and last one is the closing speech. A friendly reminder to all the participants, e-certificate will be given by email, so make sure to fill in the Google form. And last but not least, please keep your microphone muted unless you are invited to speak during the Q&A session. In doing so, we hope to minimize any distractions as much as possible during the entire program. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Yang berbahagia, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Rushdan Jailani, Deputy Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs and Alumni from Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia, USIM, representing Yang berbahagia, Professor Datuk Dr. Muhammad Rizal Wahidin, Vice Chancellor, Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia, USIM. Yang berbahagia, Tuan Haji Nicholas Sylvester Muhammad Abdullah, the Executive Chairman of the Regional Development Committee, RDC Berhad. Yang berbahagia, Tuan Haji Engineer Wan Ahmad Niza Zakaria, the Deputy Chairman of the Regional Development Community, RDC Berhad. Yang berbahagia, Associate Professor Dr. Mahazan Abdul Muttalib, the Director of Center for Community Engagement and Industrial Relations, USIM. Yang berbahagia, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Zin Kandar, the Director of the Center for Sustainability and Serenity, C4SS, USIM. Datuk-datuk, professors, fellow academicians, both organizing committee from C4SS, USIM, and RDC, and all our respective audience across the world. I bid you welcome to the QALBUN Leadership Webinar, an incredible initiative that brings people from all over the world to enhance the understanding of QALBUN leadership and its pertinency in our times. We have with us here today participants from across the world, to mention a few, from the Philippines, Australia, Pakistan, Indonesia, Korea, Yemen, Taiwan, Laos, and so on. So, to begin our program, let us indulge ourselves within beautiful Quran recitation of verse 30 until verse 39 from Surah Al-Baqarah. With that, I would like to invite Mr. Wan Muhammad Faik Wan Adnan, a representative from Regional Development Committee Berhad, for the recitation. Please welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء ونحن نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك قال إني أعلم ما لا تعلمون وعلم آدم الأسماء كلها ثم عرضهم على الملائكة فقال أنبئوني بأسماء هؤلاء إن كنتم صادقين قالوا سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم قال يا آدم أنبئهم بأسمائهم فلما أنبأهم بأسمائهم قال ألم أقل لكم إني أعلم غيب السماوات والأرض وأعلم ما تبدون وما كنتم تكتمون وإذ قلنا للملائكة اسجدوا لآدم فسجدوا إلا إبليس أبى واستكبر وكان من الكافرين وقلنا يا آدم اسكن أنت وزوجك الجنة وكلا منها رغدا حيث شئتما ولا تقربا هذه الشجرة فتكونا من الظالمين فأزلهما الشيطان عنها فأخرجهما مما كانا فيه وقلنا اهبطوا بعضكم لبعض عدو ولكم في الأرض مستقر ومتاع إلى حين فتلقى آدم من ربه كلمات فتاب عليه إنه هو التواب الرحيم قلنا اهبطوا منها جميعا فإما يأتينكم مني هدى فمن تبع هداي فلا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون والذين كفروا وكذبوا بآياتنا أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallahu khairan kathira, Mr. Faik. Now, dear audience, let us invite Tuan Haji Nicholas Sylvester, the Executive Chairman of RDC Berhad, to deliver his welcoming speech. Please welcome.
Assalamualaikum. Is my voice clear?
Waalaikumsalam. Clear.
Yes, it's clear.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihil kareem, Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Qala rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Yang berbahagia Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Rashdan Jailani, Deputy Vice Chancellor Student Affairs and Alumni USIM, representing yang berbahagia Professor Dr. Muhammad Riza Wahidin, the Vice Chancellor of USIM, Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia. Yang berbahagia Profesor Dr. Mahazan Abdul Muttalib, the Director of Center for Community Engagement Industrial Relations USIM. Yang berbahagia Associate Profesor Dr. Muhammad Zin Kandar, Director of Center for Sustainability and Serenity of USIM. Tuan Haji Wan Ahmad Nizar Zakaria, the Vice Chairman of RDC. Tuan Haji Abdul Rahman Kasim, the CEO or the COO of RDC. Datuk-datuk, professors, academicians, leaders from across the Asia Pacific region. Both the organizing committee from C4SS, USIM and RDC, and all our respective audiences. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, the main task of a person on this earth, aside from being an abadullah or the servant of Allah, is to be, as mentioned in the verses that was read beautifully by our brother Faik Adnan, Jazakallah khair, is to be a khalifa. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. Ibn Khaldun, in his book Al-Muqaddimah, he said this khalifa is man iqamatud din wa siyasatud dunya bihi. The one who established the religion and rule the world with that religion. And so it is very apt that we are looking at Qalbun leadership today, looking at that aspect of leadership lessons from our foundation, our Islam, and our religion. Ladies and gentlemen, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyati," that all of you are leaders and all of you will be accounted for regarding your leadership roles and your charges. And so it is very important that we lead in the best of manner. If we have the latest know-how in terms of leadership, we must learn and try to utilize it. Alhamdulillah, in this program is a collaboration with USIM, Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia, which is a very prestigious university in the country. We have a webinar conducted as a collaboration effort with special focus on developing capable leaders of communities in the Asia Pacific region using a system developed by USIM called Qalbun Leadership. And this is also a project that is in line with the SDG program, Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, during this new normal of the COVID-19 pandemic. This program the purpose of it is to have targeted participants from collaborators across the Asia Pacific countries, and we have given our best effort to get the participation of I think we targeted about 200 from 30 Asia Pacific countries. Inshallah, I think we see the fruit of it today. We see participation from participants from as far as I think just now we saw from Korea, from Pakistan, and we see from I think Australia as well. So the main objectives are to improve leadership in the Asia Pacific countries, ourselves and our collaborators, to share the best practice methodologies in Sustainable Development Goals project implementation based on evidence-based approach, and to explore the relationship of Qalb and leadership. I leave it to the expert to talk about this, inshallah, and in relation to the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals, and to discuss the nature and functions of Qalb, which contribute to the practice of effective and sustainable leadership for the benefit of global leaders. Why is this program important? I think this program, inshallah, will serve as a platform for non-government organizations in the Asia Pacific region to expound on leadership, to communicate and network with each other while working together to address implementation of complex, practical, sustainable development challenges. And Alhamdulillah, we try to establish a collaboration between RDC and USIM. Inshallah, share the QALBUN leadership principles with our Asia Pacific country collaborators. Hopefully, our APC collaborators leadership will be able to adopt the QALBUN leadership framework. And as a global leader, as global leaders, we improve our relationship qualities with a firm theoretical basis of effective and sustainable leadership, inshallah. I would like to welcome and thank speakers from USIM's C4SS and PLI-MJI, Associate Professor Dr. Mahazan Mutalib, Associate Professor Dr. Fazrul Azdi Wan Razali, and especially, of course, our representative, our Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Muhammad Rusdan Jalani. Jazakumullahu khairan khairal jaza. And I'd like to thank the organizers, all those who have worked laboriously for days meeting and preparing for this webinar. This would not have happened if not for, firstly, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will, and secondly, your efforts. Barakallahu feekum. We hope that through this webinar, the collaboration will be able to learn, the collaborators, our participants will be able to learn specific leadership qualities from the QALBUN leadership module, especially its holistic approach and model. I would like to witness the APC collaborators leadership grow into a higher and effective level so that they are able to manage the project implementations in the best way and ensure that best practices are adhered to, particularly in conforming with the sustainable development goals, objectives, and principles. As the QALBUN leadership model is a holistic model, and it is built on sustainable development goals, sustainable principles, more similar initiatives such as webinars, workshop, training, coaching can be extended and conducted for the benefit of the collaborators in the Asia Pacific countries. Through such initiatives, a good platform for communication, exchange of information, cooperation, and resources exchange program can be established in the near future. Thank you again. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give his barakah to this webinar and all of us. Jazakumullah khairan kathira, khairul jaza. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much, Tuan Haji Nicholas Sylvester, for the speech. Next, let us invite Yang Berusaha, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Zain Kandar, the Director of Center for Sustainability and Serenity, C4SS USIM, to deliver his welcoming speech. Please welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Nur Atricia, for SNMC today. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin Asrafil Anbiya'i wal Mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Yang bahagia Ustaz Profesor Dr. Muhammad Rusdan Jailani, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Student Affairs and Alumni, Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia USIM. Yang bahagia Tuan Haji Nicholas Sylvester Muhammad Abdullah, Executive Chairman Regional Development Corporation Community RDC. Yang bahagia Engineer Haji Wan Ahmad Nazar Zakaria, Deputy Chairman Regional Development Community RDC. Yang bahagia Associate Professor Dr. Mahazan Abdul Mutalib, Lecturer at the Faculty of Leadership and Management USIM, and also as the Director, Center for Community Engagement and Industrial Relation, QALBUN, Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia. Datuk-datuk, professors, fellow academician, both organizing committee from C4SS, USIM, and RDC, invited media representatives, and all our respective audience from Asia Pacific region and other part of the world, and also from Malaysia. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam integration of akli and nakli knowledge. Salam lestari and sejahtera, and very good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, The Center for Sustainability and Serenity, C4SS Sains Islam Malaysia, USIM, would like to express our gratitude by this opportunity granted by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to organize this historic event, Seminar QALBUN Leadership, in collaboration with Regional Development Community, RDC, our industry partners, which is an experienced organization working in the field of Sustainable Development Goal United Nations, which have vast network in Asia Pacific and Middle East. This seminar marks the first step for further cooperation, inshallah, between USIM and RDC. We realize at this juncture, our Ummah at large is in need of assistance and looking for outstanding leaders that will not only solve many current problems, but also able to show right path and envision the real duty as Khalifa on the earth, or Khalifa to fil ard. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in many verses in the Quran, and one of it recited by our Qari just now in Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verses 30. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned many times fil ardi khalifa, or fil ard, with other terms. Also in Surah Al-An'am, chapter 6, verse 165. وَهُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَكُمْ خَلَائِفَ الْأَرْضِ. Also, Khalifa fil ard, Allah mentioned again in this surah. And it is He who has made you successor upon the earth and has raised some of you above other in degrees. Also in many other Surah Al-A'raf, chapter 7, verses 69, again Al-A'raf, chapter 7, verses 74, Surah Yunus, chapter 10, verses 14, Surah Yunus also in verses 73, and many more. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about Khalifat fil ard. And today our discussion is to look ourselves, inshallah, and try to understand how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala address us as Khalifa fil ard. And Allah also recognized this Khalifa as the best ummah, like what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Ali Imran, chapter 3, verses 110. A'udzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Kuntum khaira ummatin akhrijat linnas ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhauna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. Walau amana ahlul kitab lakana khairan lahum minhumul mu'minuna wa aktharuhumul fasiqun. And the meaning, you are the best ummah ever raised for mankind. You beat the fair and forbid the unfair, and you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank Yang Bahagia Professor Dr. Muhammad Rusdan Jailani, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Student Affairs and Alumni USIM, representing Yang Bahagia Professor Datuk Dr. Muhammad Reza Wahidin, Vice Chancellor Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia, USIM, to officiate this historic event. Also, our big appreciation to Professor Dr. Rusdan for contributing in this event as a speaker as well. Our appreciation also goes to my colleague, Yang Bahagia Professor Dr. Mahazan Abdul Muttalib, lecturer at the Faculty of Leadership and Management and the Director of Center for Community Engagement and Industrial Relations, PLIMG, also as a speaker for today's event. I would like also to thank all members of the organizing committee from both USIM and RDC. Last but not least, also to all our media friends, I hope and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all participants will gain benefit from the knowledge that will be shared by our speakers today, inshallah. I end my speech with wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And jazakumullah khairan katsira. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the understanding of leadership, the understanding of the leadership in Islam can be derived from the concept of Khalifah, vicegerent, and should not be confined to limited or specific era in Islamic civilization. So the major concern is whether the practices of leadership conform to Islam, both in its internal and external elements. To cater to this concern, RDC, in collaboration with USIM, brings you QALBUN Leadership Webinar to better understanding the concept of QALBUN leadership, which produces great leaders in line with the Quranic teachings, and to discuss the QALBUN leadership and sustainable development goals. Now, without any more delay, I would like to invite Yang Berbahagia, Associate Professor Dr. Mohammad Rushdan Jalani, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs and Alumni USIM, to represent Yang Berbahagia, Professor Datuk Dr. Muhammad Riza Wahidin, the Vice Chancellor of the Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia, for the keynote speech and officiating today's webinar. Please welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Satusha, our MC for today's event. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi tayyibin at-tahirin. Ashabihi wa man tabi'a tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yaumiddin wa ba'du. Yang dihormati Tuan Haji Nicholas Sylvester Muhammad Abdullah, Executive Chairman Regional Development Community RDC. Terima kasih Tuan Haji Wan Ahmad Nizal Zakaria, Vice Chairman Regional Development Community RDC. My colleague, Associate Professor Dr. Mahazan Abdul Muttalib, Director Center for Community Engagement and Industrial Networking USIM. Terima kasih juga Associate Professor Dr. Ahmad Zain Kandar, Director Center for Sustainability and Serenity USIM. Datuk, professors, fellow academics, both organizing committee from C4SS, USIM, and RDC, and all participants and respective audience. Alhamdulillah, we are grateful to Allah SWT because with His permissions and bounty, we can be together in this webinar, QALBUN Leadership. This webinar, inshallah, is very meaningful to all of us. This is the first time we are signing after we have signing the memorandum of understanding on the 1st of July this year. So alhamdulillah, after we have signing the MOU, so this is the first event that we collaborate together, and which is backed by the mandate and trust from the government to help sustain the university, inshallah. I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to participate in this webinar session. For your information, Universiti Sains Malaysia, or USIM, is an Islamic-based university and the 12th university wholly owned and funded by the government of Malaysia. USIM's goal is to be a leader in all aspects of knowledge and as a global reference center for the integrations of Nakli and Akli knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, USIM uses a balanced approach in education, which is to apply elements that meet the physical and spiritual needs, intellectual, and essential skills, not only strengthening in the academic programs offered, but also in its administrative and management practices as well. The approach presented by USIM encompasses a holistic approach towards the delivery of knowledge for the universal good. Based on that, USIM offers a unique model for Islamic higher education, which differentiates it from other Islamic universities around the world. The integrations of religious knowledge with the social and natural or physical sciences in all USIM programs has provided a comprehensive understanding as well as offering new approaches and solutions to current global problems. The education model at USIM is based on several basic principles that integrate Islamic science, the social and physical sciences. They not only provide a comprehensive understanding of current global challenges, but also offer new methods in approaching and solving them. The universal values are found in Islamic values, and history has also proven that these values can be shared by universal human beings. Live together in harmony with mutual respect and tolerance. This is also an effort towards restoring the values of scientific knowledge and technology by earlier Muslim scholars and continuing to drive them forward. For your information, till today, we have 9 different faculties. We have the Faculty of Quran and Sunnah Study. We have the Faculty of Islamic Management and Da'wah, the Faculty of Law and Sharia, the Faculty of Economy and Muamalat, the Faculty of Language and Education, the Faculty of Science and Technology, the Faculty of Dentistry, the Faculty of Medicine, and the Faculty of Engineering and Architecture. From the values stated above, USIM needs the cooperation of various parties, including the government, local industry players, NGOs, and other corporate companies to ensure that the values will benefit the local industry, especially the network of Berhad industry players who will contribute to economic growth. USIM has been actively involved with the community from various angles. We have projects involving local community that being carried out by the Center for Sustainability and Serenity, C4SS, namely Taman Semarak Community Garden and Qalbun Pokan. The place is about 10 kilometers from the campus. Thus, I am sure with this webinar, we will meet the objective to explore the relationship of Qalb and leadership in relation to the attainment of SDGs, as well as to discuss the nature and functions of Qalb, which contribute to the practice of effective and sustainable leadership for the benefits of global leaders. Alhamdulillah, we have listened to a very wonderful Quranic recitation today from Surah Al-Baqarah, verses 30 to 34, which in this surah, as mentioned by also our brother Sylvester and Dr. Zain Kandar just now, it highlighted the notions of Khalifa, which it should not be confined to limited or specific era in Islamic civilization. The major concern is whether the practices of leadership conform to Islam, both in its internal and external elements. Internal elements refer to the inner dimension of leadership, such as leadership belief, philosophy, values, intentions, visions, practices, and other esoteric elements that relate to the sacred, the sovereignty of God, Allah the Almighty. Meanwhile, the external elements of leadership in Islam cover all aspects of outer dimension of leadership, such as leadership behaviors, skills, and processes, as well as the strategies that we plan for our organizations or our institutions. External features of leadership are perceivable from the conventional definitions of leadership, or that is a process an ability, a skill, or behavior. In studying leadership in Islam, what has attracted many people is how far the internal dimensions of leadership produce consistent external outcomes of an Islamic leader. This will produce a leader with balanced personality and emotion that will give impact to his or her overall leadership performance across different situations and contexts. This could be seen from two perspectives. On one hand, the focus is on conformity with conventional theories of leadership or leadership outcomes derived from internal dimensions of leaders. On the other hand, it can contradict the conventional leadership theories that, all external elements of leadership since the outcome in Islam. For example, the outcomes are more consistent and not so much influenced by situational factors. This is because the external elements of leadership in Islam are derived from stable fundamental dimensions of basic understanding of Islamic leadership based on intention, qalb, values, philosophy, and of course, the most importantly is on how we establish our connections and our conscious awareness to God, the most Almighty. Ladies and gentlemen, this broadens the scope of study of leadership in Islam. Leadership in Islam is not only perceived from the standpoint of effective leadership processes, but also from the perspective of how a leader measures up against the basic concept of human fitrah. As understood in Islam, the overall discussion will also be extended to the understanding of SDGs and methodology to attain them. Specifically, the course will be linked to Knowledge for Change, K4C initiative that USIM is exploring with the collaborations of UNESCO Chair in Community-Based Research and Social Responsibility of Higher Education. Ladies and gentlemen, I do hope this webinar it will benefit all of you and be able to understand and implement SDGs project effectively. To end this speech, I would like to take this opportunity once again to thank all who are involved in making the webinar success today, especially to Mr. Haji Nicholas Mr. Muhammad Abdullah and his team, and also panel speakers, and all of you for participating in this webinar. I would also like to congratulate the staff of Center for Sustainability and Serenity, C4SSUSIM, and Regional Development Committee, RDC, who have worked together to make this webinar a success. Ladies and gentlemen, with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I hereby officially officiate this webinar. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you for the wonderful keynote speech. As a token of appreciation, do receive a gift from us, inshallah ta'ala. Now, for the group photo session, I'd like to invite everyone to open up their camera and give their best smile. So, we're gonna open up our camera. Okay. Right. In the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Everything is good? Okay. One more. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for the cooperation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will be showing you a montage video to give an idea of what we aim to establish in this program with the spirit of collaboration between USIM and RDC. Please enjoy.
The Center for Sustainability and Serenity, C4SS at Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia, is a one-stop center to promote and coordinate sustainability and serenity initiative within USIM community, as well as at the local community and at the national level. C4SS has been working with some partners at the state and national level. C4SS aspiration is to be an outstanding center locally and nationally, engaging and collaborating with as many partners so that we can be part of the ecosystem that empower every Malaysian to practice sustainable lifestyle. Working with our new partner, Regional Development Community, RDC, is something that we extremely look forward. As a university for community, USIM's experts in different fields with vast experiences in teaching, research, development, industry, and community engagement experiences can be coordinated and synergized with RDC's Asia-Pacific partners to achieve set goals in exploring new avenues in achieving sustainable development goals and improve quality of life.
RDC is a faith-based philanthropic organization established to provide perpetual impactful community development projects. We say perpetual because we want to have not a one-time contribution to a particular society, but rather a long-term continuous impactful development to our selected communities. RDC has coordinators to manage our collaborators in 30 Asia-Pacific countries and 11 other countries outside the region. To ensure success of our projects, we have subject matter experts in preparing project modules and project managers to assist us in project implementation and monitoring. RDC and USIM engagement in this collaboration project is one of the RDC operations model. In this model, RDC provides the platform for our partner USIM to ensure successful implementation of SDG project. We are very pleased to work with a prestigious reputable university like USIM. USIM have a treasure trove of knowledge which are very firmly founded on research and practical application. Hopefully, this will be the first of many more leadership development and other areas of cooperation between RDC and USIM.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us dive into the discussion of what is Qalbun leadership. So for this, I would like to invite Yang Berbahagia Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Rushdan Jailani, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs and Alumni, USIM. Please welcome.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, and we meet again this time. So I would like to share my script first. Can you see my screen?
Clear.
You got my slide?
Yes,
Yes,
we
Prof.
can
Alhamdulillah.
see the
Okay, good.
slides.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah. Alhamdulillah. Very clear. Jazakallah.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Inshallah, in this session, I'd like to share. I will say that this is not something very new to some of you. Maybe this is something that we consider as a revision and revisit again to what we have already understand and we already apply even in our daily life and even in our role as a leader in our organizations and in our institution. Okay, so I have certain aims for this session, which I begin it with, inshallah, share with all of you, my dear audience, the review on leadership, and then follow with the nature and quality of Qalb, and then as well as the embrace the right values of leadership. Okay, so when we talk about a leader, so as all of you ladies and gentlemen over here, I believe that you all are a leader. All of you are a leader. All of you are a leader, and you are a leader in many different levels, many different positions, and for many different purposes, and for many different audiences, community, and of course, with many different activities and strategies. So in this respect, when we talk about leaders, basically, I would like to invite all of you to respond to me with my first reflection, with this first reflection. Of course, I cannot invite you to respond to me now at the moment, okay? But maybe you can think about it in your own individual level on 4 different questions, which to me, it sounds very crucial. Number 1 is, do you really want to be a leader? Yeah. So do you really want to be a leader? Yes, this is a good question, and some people they have a different perspective on how to respond to this leader. They might say that if I'm given chance, given trust, given amanah, I inshallah will take it and will deliver it. But for some people, they said no. It doesn't matter whether they trust or not. I may not take it. But from different perspectives, whether we are given the trust or not, many people say we are leader. We are leader whether we are be appointed or we are not being appointed. Whether we are designed, we are leader by design, or we are leader by accidents or just by conditions. So there are so many different response. But what I want you to think about when we say, do you really want to be leader? It means that are we having a real consciousness that this is a trust, respect, and honor and service that given by someone to us. Secondly is, what is your leadership philosophy? This is another important question. We know that there are so many different styles of leadership. There's so many different values, even approaches of leadership. And we can't select all of them. We can't choose all of them. Yeah, but we have to be very careful and wise what sort of leadership philosophy we want to take and we want to uphold. And the third question is, where does your leading force come from? Being a leader is not differentiate between us, a leader, and our followers or our friends, our people surrounding us. We have emotions, we have feelings. Sometimes we are having a very good emotional feelings, spirit, motivation, but because of other circumstances, maybe we have trapped ourselves with different kind of situation, difficulties. So where does your leading force come from? Whether we need a support from friends, or we can be a person who can keep our motivations, though we face several challenges in our life. And last but not least, what or how do you want to be known as a leader? It's another crucial question, because we know that one day we may leave this world. One day we have to withdraw from the organizations. We have to give this honor to other people. We want to give a very good legacy to our people, to our organizations. So how do you want to be known as a leader? So these 4 questions can be answered later on by all of you after this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, let us see this graphic, which you can see one person is giving a speech, and there are many audiences listening and also watching the speech given by, I suppose, a leader. Then you see we have 2 different response over here. On the left here, the response is, we believe you. But on the right side, the response is, we believe in you. So what are the difference? What are different? We believe you and we believe in you. The difference here actually, when your colleague, your friends, your followers just come to you and say, I believe you, okay? It not necessarily means that he really think that you are having a great idea. They just believe you because you are in the position, you are leader. So they have no choice except to follow follow you and also to listen to you. And they might not agree with you, but since they have many interests, so they have to follow you. But when we say about we believe in you, from the other side, it means that the followers, your friends, your colleagues, your subordinates, okay, your people actually not only believe in what you said, but they believe in your values. They believe in your directions. They believe in your vision. And they really support you wholeheartedly. And they know that you are a great leader. They want to take you as the best exemplar. This is the notion of we believe in you. In this respect, we would like to be a leader who the audience, who the supporters, who the followers will come to us and say, we believe in you. Yeah, as I say this now, when we talk about leadership, there's no one standard definition given by one single guru of leaders or leaderships or one great scholar of leadership or one practitioner of leadership. They come with different ideas, different perspectives, different words and different notions. So we don't want to deal with this part in this session, but I just share one and few of examples quoted by many great scholars in past, okay, or many great leaders in past. One of them is John Quincy Adams, one of the earlier the United States of America presidents. Okay, he said that if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. Okay. Then, of course, in different contexts, we have our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family, the most greatest example of great leader. Okay, for the whole human being or mankind. He is a leader. He was a leader, and I mean not only admired by those who believe in him, but by everyone coming from different religions, from different part of the world, from since he was born till today, and inshallah till the end of this world. And one of his beautiful hadith mentioned, as highlighted by Mr. Sylvester just now, kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyyati. Each of you is a leader or leaders, okay, and you will be asked about your responsibilities. So if we take this hadith from our spiritual consciousness conscience, okay, we, alhamdulillah, we will take this as one of the fitrah given by us. This is the fitrah given by us to everybody, yeah, to everyone. Whenever we are born in this world, we are already given this status. That is the status of being a humble servant of God, and also being the vicegerent of Allah. And whether we are in a so-called official and very formal kind of leader, or we are just a very simple leader in our daily mundane activities, each of us are in charge of our activities, of our duties. We will be asked, we will be Christians, we will be warned, and we will be responsible for every and each actions that we do in this life. And another thing that, before I come to the discussions of the Qalb-guided leadership, I take also the example of this great leader, Nelson Mandela. Okay, we know very well that he was imprisoned for more than 20 over years. Okay, and then when he was given freedom, and he was released from the prison, when the journalists and the reporters asked him what he will do after this to his so-called rivals. And then he mentioned, I forgive all of them. Yeah, so this is one of the great examples given by this Nelson Mandela. And one of his values that he possessed, he mentioned that a good head and a good heart are always a formidable combination. Yeah, we cannot split the head and the heart because there are two things that need to be united. Now, I'd like to highlight some issues and concerns before we go into detailed discussions about Qalb-guided leadership, which I believe most of you also agree that in this current turbulence, plus with the COVID-19 pandemic era, we face huge challenges. I mean, unprecedented, challenges. We can't imagine before that we are living in this kind of situation. We have seen the conditions of human beings, okay, from those who have been greatly affected by this COVID-19 pandemic, give them a tough time. And this is more or less a challenge for all of us, and somehow we need to help them and to bring them back to at least to get them some clear directions where they should go and what step they should be in these situations and conditions. Besides that, one of the greatest concern and problems with the current human being, with the current human situation in this world, not only in Malaysia, but also in other parts of the world, maybe in Japan, in Korea, in US, in Europe, okay, in Australia, is this one. The challenge of how to balance this. The challenge on how to balance mind, body, and soul. The spirit, body, soul, and mind, okay? We have this, we know that we have this. Okay? We're aware that, okay? We're aware that we possess this, but somehow we can't really coordinate them rightly. Yeah, that's why in this context, when we talk about leader and manager, if you want to reflect this context to the manager and leader, the leader, the manager, we always ask them to do the thing right. Yeah, do the thing right. But then when we talk to the leader, okay, the manager, we said you do the thing right, but to the leader, we ask them to do the right thing. Okay, but if we think from different perspective, if we have a balance of mind, body, and soul, we will demand them to the leader, not only to do the right thing, but do the right thing rightly. Yeah, do the right thing rightly, or make a wise decision. Yeah, not only right, but a wise decision. To have a right decision, to possess a right decision, to possess a wise decision, we have to admit, if we just based on our body and mind, it is far from enough. It's far from enough. We need to have the combinations of mind, body, soul, yeah, and spirit to reach to the level of right and wise decisions. And when I put it in different way, another challenge of human being in this current situations, of course, even to some of the leaders in this world, is to balance between the mind and the heart. That's why I always ask my audience, okay, what is the greatest distance in the world? Yeah, they think that I expected them to answer from one locality to another locality, from one country to another country. maybe from Morocco to Japan or from the North Pole to South Pole. Okay, yes, this is correct from locality and geographical perspective. But when we talk about in the context of human being, actually the greatest distance in the world is just 40 inches. You know, from where to where, it is from the heart to the mind. If we measure the heart to mind, it's just 14 inches. But this is the most difficult to manage, the balance between them. Sometimes the mind says one thing and the heart says different thing. Or the mind says different and the heart says different. Or taste and feel different. And this becomes more complicated when we don't have a stable mind and soul. And we can't really guide what actually need to come first, whether this is the mind or whether this is the heart. Okay, it's something that comes to us to in certain situations. Okay, so another problem in this context, the heart and mind disconnect. Okay, where your heart believes in one thing and your mind believes in one thing. Okay, so this is the expression of mind, body, and soul. And this is what happened in this world today. Okay, not only in the third world, but it happened anyway. It happened in the developed world, in the developing world, okay, the third world country. So, of course, it's very, very sad to see this photo. A child who has barely can get food to eat, to survive in this world, in a very, very poor condition and situation. But another child, another boy here sitting happily and kind of like eating his Mac or iPad to show that the different gap between the rich and the poor. And we can't just look and see or wait and see and do nothing. We have to create awareness and consciousness to our community to think about on how to solve this problem physically or financially, economically, or even to transform them, to bring them out from the circle of these maybe poor conditions to having a better situation in the near future. And in this context, we want of us to think about on how to know, learn to be, and learn to live together. This is a great challenge, okay? Because in this context, we believe that Islam teaches us tolerance, not hatred, universal brotherhood, non-enmity, peace, and not violence. Be, inshallah, in this, those who all of you who are here in this webinar will agree with me. We need to take these ideas and practice them, okay? And try our utmost best to promote this to the community and to the society. And we believe that the teaching of Islam is not only for the followers, for the believers of Muslims, okay? But it also can be taken, can be practiced, can be also embraced by everyone in this world, regardless of cultural, religions, and also tribes. Then, just to give you one example on how our beloved Prophet Muhammad SAW, peace be upon him and his family, show his respect to human beings. You know, in one of the narrations, this is a funeral procession passed in front of the Prophet Muhammad SAW, and he stood up when he was told by the people that he was the coffin of a Jew. He said, was he not a human being? I just want to reiterate here, this is a very important notion to be understood very well by all of us. We have to respect human beings. We have to honor them. We have to give them the rights. We have to give them what we also have in order to establish a peaceful life, a harmonious life, a peaceful, a mutual respect life and also we can live together in this beautiful world nicely. Another concern of an issue and concern when we talk about leadership is from this photo. Ladies and gentlemen, what can you see from this photo? So this is the iceberg. The iceberg, maybe some of you have seen this before your eye. I mean, you have been to this place somewhere in this world. You know, at the moment, until today, I couldn't have chance to visit to the place which have this iceberg. But as far as the documentary and also the photo have shared to us, when we get this photo, we know that the peak or the aspect which we can see from the iceberg is just a small portion, whereas what is under the surface is the largest part. Yeah. So why I show this? There is a reason. There is a reason. Human beings in our life always seeing what is visualized in himself, what can be seen, what is visible in his or her eye. They can't see what is hidden. Some of them not even think and ponder what is the hidden aspect behind something. Even when we imagine we are in the front of a big tree, we just always put our attention to the trees, to the nice maybe leaf, trunk, and also maybe the fruits on the tree. But we do not imagine. I mean, we can't imagine what are the roots that play important role in sustaining the tree to survive. Yeah, on how these roots manage to take the water, and sustain the trees. Because we always pay attention to what we can see on the surface. So in this context, when we talk about a human being, this is what I want to show to you. What people see is only the behavior. We have 1001 behaviors, our friends, even ourselves. We have positive, negative, or in between positive and negative. Actions, behaviors, routine. Some people we can see that he can easily get angry, but at the same time can calm himself. Some people always want to help others. Some people will think more about his neighbor compared to himself. This is behavior. Some people come to a meeting, come to office very punctual, and they will work very dedicatedly. And they are very honest. They are maybe ready to be, for example, taught and ready to be educated and nurtured. So this is behavior. This is what we can see, what people can see. Their smiles, the way how they speak, the body language, the facial expressions and other things. But what is hidden, which we not normally can see it, are this one: the values, the belief, and the worldview. We can't see, of course, difficult to understand the values of certain people. When we mix with people coming from different cultures, they have different kind of values, belief, and worldview. And sometimes we cannot brain why they do this, do that, and what sort of values they have. Of course, when we talk about the Asian, the Eastern values, sometimes we can see some different compared to the Western. and also European values, okay, and belief of sorts, and also worldview. So this is the hidden one. And from another perspective, when we talk about this iceberg, you can see the observer part is the results and the behaviors. These are the outcomes and the habits that we can see. Yeah, that's why sometimes we shouldn't make a final judgment by just looking the results and the behaviors, okay? Because that will not give you everything. They will not give you the real situations of people. That's why we need sometimes to be friends with people and get the real idea about who he or she is. This is what we consider as invisible, okay? The emotions and the feelings and the thinkings, the values and the beliefs, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, why I talk about this iceberg, why I want you to have some picture on the visible, the observable and invisible. The purpose I'm sharing this is to highlight, as human beings, we also have this situation. Of course, we have this, but I want to relate to the real conditions of human beings, what we are composed of. Yeah, so we are a composition of what? Of the physical and the spiritual. This is human being. What we can see is the physical aspect. Okay, we can see our hand, our limbs, okay, our eye, of course, our legs, okay, our beautiful face, our very good hair, or everything that we can see from the physical part. But we can't see the spiritual part, the internal part, which I put it them as 4 different aspects. That spiritual aspects are, number 1 is heart. Heart is what? The thought. And number 2 is our intellect, mind. And number 3 is our self, okay, our self or nafs. And number 4 is our spirit, our ruh. Our spirit is our ruh. So these 4 invisible, internal, spiritual elements actually are the most important and essential component of human being. More important, much more important than the physical aspect of human being. We don't deny that we need food in order for us to sustain our tummy. I mean, physically, to survive in this world. We need to take maybe nice shirts or have a nice car sometime, okay? And then to visit nice place to make ourselves, our physical self comfortable and pleased, okay? But do not forget, as long as we give nice treatment to the physical aspect of human being, do not forget to give a remarkable and also a very delicate treatment to the internal aspect of human being. We have problem when we are not put balance between these two, or in fact, we do not pay attention more to the spiritual aspect. And in this context, when we want to be a leader in this context is something that coming from the notions of be a good man or a good woman. I took this from my one of my great teachers, Professor Syed Nakal Atas. Alhamdulillah, I have the opportunity to study with him, study under his supervision. And one of his books, he mentioned, a good man is the one who is sincerely conscious of his responsibilities towards the true God, who understands and fulfills his obligation to himself and others in his society with justice, and who constantly strives to improve every aspect of himself towards perfection as a man of adab. So there are several key terms here. Sincerely conscious of his responsibilities. Yeah. So we do not want just having a conscious, but an honest conscious, a sincerely conscious. Okay. And of course, to understand and fulfill the obligations, not only for himself, but also to society and throughout the nation as well. Of course, constantly strive to improve every aspect of himself towards perfection as a man of adab. Here, adab is an Arabic term, and adab here is not, I shouldn't be understood as simply walk very decently. Okay, I mean, do not walk arrogantly, and then when we talk in a very we control our voice. Okay, we don't shout. Okay, this is one kind of adab, but in this context, adab is referring to the point of we have to act justly, we have to act correctly, rightly, and wisely. So this is the notion of adab in this context. And as I mentioned just now, when talking about nurturing ihsan personality, we have to try to educate ourselves, to educate our friends and our colleagues. Okay, they need to know, to do, and be. Okay, or learn to know, learn to do, and learn to be. Here in this context, if I put it in this way, he or she understand. Okay, so he or she understand or know trustworthiness. Okay, for example, amanah. He understand what is amanah, and then he or she has to do it, to implement it. Needed to implement the just, and also, and is trustworthy in his or herself. Okay, so he has to also be as a just person. If we take in different perspectives, I mean, talking about the negative attitude of human beings, corruption. Okay, we educate and nurture our colleagues. They need to understand what is corruption. Okay, how people can trap in this corruption, how corruption can take place. Okay, when they know corruption, okay, they know all this knowledge, information about corruption, they have to act in this context, not to put himself or practice corruption. Yeah, and also he needs to also firm in his conditions anti or against the corruption activities. Okay, he will not support the corruption activities. He will not be with the corrupted people. Okay, he will advise them. He will make sure, warn them for what they have done, oppressed others, and taken the right of others for the sake of his or her interest. This is the notion of we call it the live to be, learn to know, and to do and to be. Ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the point of what is heart of Qalb-guided leadership. So the first half an hour, I share with you some basic ideas on leadership and some concern and challenges that we are facing as an individual or as a leader. And we need to take some preparation, to do preparations, and then not only to help ourselves, our colleagues, but to drive them to be a good leader in the near future. So when we start our job, start our research for this guided leadership, we basically refer to Quran and Hadith. We have 4 or 5 different individuals who work together for this project. And Alhamdulillah, we have trained, I think, quite a big amount of participants from local and international universities and community on how they should really be a good leader from the perspective of Qalb-guided leadership, of Qalbun leadership. Of course, in this 1 hour sessions, I cannot share much because normally when we do training, we do it for 3 days, 3 full days. So we give them the ideas, the notions, the basic theory, and then we come to the practices as well. Okay, and how to not only know it, and then on how to apply it as a leader in the different situation and context. But for the purpose, I will highlight what is hard Qalb leadership in the very simple and also basic ideas, which I begin it with one of the Prophet beautiful hadith, which he mentioned. An-Nu'man bin Bashir an-Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam قال ألا وإن في الجسد مضغة إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله ألا وهي قلب. The Prophet mentioned in one of his hadiths. Of course, this is a long hadith, but we take only the last part of this hadith. Then he mentioned that there is a piece of flesh in the body. If it becomes good, a reform, the whole body becomes good. But if it gets spoiled, the whole body gets spoiled. And that is the heart. Hadith from the Bukhari narration. So, ulama have discussed this hadith from 2 different angles, and they're referring this this heart is to 2 different perspectives. One is the physical heart, and the second one is the spiritual heart. And both need to be sustained, and both need to be in a very healthy condition, because the effects of healthy heart, physically and spiritually, will really give a tremendous effect to human beings. And vice versa, if the situations of the physical and the spiritual heart is not healthy, maybe they are in the form of sickness, okay, or illness, it also can give a bad effect to human being, physically and spiritually. Okay, and in most of the sheikh, most of the ulama who study tasawwuf and who study hadith, they come to this point when they describe heart, when they describe spiritual heart. They come to the notion of the centrality of heart, thought. And they said the heart is the machine that drives all acts of worship. It is what moves the entire body. As long as the heart is alive, then the limbs will be alive, and the soul will open itself up to worship. However, if the heart becomes diseased, then worship will become too heavy to soul, leading it eventually disliking and hating worship. So that's why ulama like Al-Imam Al-Ghazali, yeah, the ulama like even when we talk about Ibrahim Adham, okay, we talk of Sheikh Junaid, and even the current, the present scholars like Professor Seneca Latas, they admit that if we want to make our life always in the mood of able to submit ourselves, worshipping Allah and performing good deeds to Allah, good deeds to human beings, the key condition is to purify our heart. We have to purify our spiritual heart. We have to make sure that this spiritual heart is not controlled, is not managed by the carnal desire, by the evil or by the satanic desire. We have to make sure that we have to clean it every day. Okay, not to say every single second, but practically in every day we have to make sure it is clean. Okay, by what? By do some ritual. Okay, as we always do. We do praying to Allah. We do Quranic recitations. We practice remembrance, zikrullah. We do forgive and seeking the forgiveness, astaghfirullah. But that is not enough. To purify our heart, we also to practice our action. I mean, we have to manifest it, okay, throughout our action. That's why if we study the practices of our great Sufis, our great scholars in the past, though they are great scholars and learned people, in order to purify their soul, they have to do certain other practices. Yeah, for example, they work with people, they stay with the orphanage, they be with the poor and needy people. They even some of them, clean the public bath and then the public toilet, because they want to make sure they can control their arrogance by doing such things. And I want to share with all of you one of the important, another important hadith given by our Prophet when he mentioned that Man arafa nafsah jahadaha wa man jahada nafsah ahmalaha, which it means that the one who know his own self, okay, he will wage war against it. It means that to purify it and not allow the satanic side to take over. Yeah, because we know that spiritually we have the positive side, the higher self, and the negative side, the lower self. And being a leader, we have to make sure we are always in the state of clinging or attached to the high self, to the positive aspect, rather than attached to the carnal or low self of human being. Because before we want to make decisions or we have to make any call, we have to make sure we are not in the state of angry or anger. Okay, we are not in the state of trying to take other people's rights, and we have to make sure we are not in the state of putting our interests first. Yeah, so this can only reach or attain if we have the conditions of purified heart. So this is the importance of heart in the context of leadership. So just a glance of what Quran has talking about heart. Okay, so the Arabic noun al-qalb appears some 132 times in Quran. Yeah, only 2 or 3 of these possibly referring to the bodily organ, far more than such closely related terms as sadar, fu'at, al-lub or al-bab, both occurring 16 times. Okay, the qalb and those words related to it through its roots are mentioned with more than 100 ayat. So it shows to us clearly how Allah emphasized this spiritual heart. Unfortunately, for some of human beings or some of Muslims, they maybe don't have chance to understand the real meanings and the real things to be understood from the term heart mentioned in Quran. Okay, the day on which neither wealth will be of any use, nor children, except who comes to God with a tranquil heart. Qalbun salim. Yeah, in one of the verses, those who believe and whose heart finds satisfaction in the remembrance of Allah, far without doubt in the remembrance of Allah, do heart find satisfaction. We also have this verse. Okay, alladhina amanu wa tatma'innu qulubuhum bi dhikrillah, Allah bi dhikrillah tatma'innul qulub. Yeah. And then another verse, wala takfu ma laysa laka bi'ilm Inna sam'a wal basara wal fu'ada kullu ulaika kana anhu mas'ula. Yeah, it's another thing. Yeah, and then it's another thing is Allah mentioned Quran. Summa qaffayna ala atharihim bi rusulina qaffayna bi Isa ibn Maryam wa atainahu al-injil wa ja'alna fi qulubi alladhina ittaba'uhu ra'fatan wa rahmatan wa rahbaniyatan tadakhuha ma katabnaha alaihim illa ibtigha'a ridwanillah. Again, the word qulub also mentioned. So you can refer to this more of ayat, okay, in Quran, talk about heart. And of course, in what another source Allah mentioned, Allah has not made for any man two hearts within him. Do not obey and follow he whose heart we have made to be in ghaflah, deflected from the source, and so he who is his heart is sick would be greedy. Yeah. All right. So all these are the verses talking about the spiritual heart. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So why we talk about heart, and now we come to the different perspective. When we talk about heart, we have to understand the heart actually is the originator of many things. Yeah, the heart is the originator of our feelings. When we talk about our feelings, so the one that actually spark, initiate it, actually it's our spiritual heart. It's not our mind, it's not our brain, it's not our intellect. It's not our physical. But we know that the physical may show and manifest the feeling. For example, when your heart is happy, you will smile and you will laugh. So people can see you laugh and smile. At the same time, I mean in different conditions, when your heart is sad, sorrow, okay, people can also see from your facial expression. Okay, you may cry, very dull face, okay, happen to you at the expressions. And emotions, okay, of course, the appetites as well as the desires. These are derived from Qalb, okay, and this is something that we experience it, and we know it happens in our daily life. And in addition to that, do not forget actually the heart also develops instinct, okay? It sends signal to our brain to react accordingly, okay? When we talk about our daily action, sometimes we are in the conditions of want to, cheat people. I mean, talk not the right way. I mean, we are trying to cheating others. For example, when one day happened to be we arrived to the office maybe 10 minutes late, and then when the boss asks you why you come late today, and when we want to do this kind of cheating or lying, we want to say that actually I came late because I wake up late. But instead of that, you say that you have problem because of the traffic jam, okay? But the moment when your heart wants to talk lie, okay, to cheat others, if you have godly, what you call it, instinct conditions, your heart will tell you that that is not right. It's not right to talk, okay, cheating and lying others. This is not right practice. Okay, so that's why he gives you instinct. And most of the time when we, sometimes when we are not all the time, but sometimes when we meet people, our instinct will give us some signs, okay, some initial sign, but we can't, of course, take it as everything, but just initial signs of some people. Okay. Another important thing we talk about heart, actually, heart is the seat of knowledge and consciousness. Okay, this part, many people do not take it seriously when we talk about ma'rifah. The real ma'rifah is not coming from our intellect and brain, actually. The real ma'rifah is coming from how the heart, how the readiness of our heart is. It means that if we put our heart in a very clean and purified situation, inshallah, we will invite the nur of Allah, the light of Allah to us. And because this light comes to us, we can gain better understanding. We can gain better comprehension of certain things. Of course, for Muslim, we really are very, in a very dire need of getting a real understanding of Allah SWT. We want to have the real hakikat of Allah SWT. Okay, and then the heart, the spiritual heart is also the place which can receive ma'rifah, God consciousness. Okay, God consciousness is not only in the context of when we are in the situation of praying to Allah. We are in the situation of doing prostrating, okay, sujud or rukuk. Okay, actually, in every time and in every condition, whether we are doing in our doing activities in our daily life, for example, if we are always having a God consciousness, we will witness perfection at all times. Okay, we have money, we don't have money. We have good food, we don't have delicious food. Okay, we have good place to stay, we don't have good place, not so good place to stay and living. But if the heart is there, it will give you a sign of a witnessing perfection. Okay, reflective divine light and spiritual intelligence, origin of thought, and produce a deeper intelligence. You know that people in the West, they also, discuss about emotional quotients, emotional intelligence, or spiritual intelligence. Okay, spiritual quotients, and they also highlight that how the spiritual intelligence can give them ultimate intelligence, make them review life, and then make human beings heal and make human being change. Okay, the only concern, the difference between the spiritual quotients coming from the West compared to what we are, propagating, the notions of our spiritual being is always connected to Allah the Almighty. Okay, so we have to believe in God before we come to the notions of spiritual consciousness. But in the context of Western people, somehow they believe in the idea of spirituality without religion, or spirituality without God. So this is maybe different to what we are believing or practicing. Okay, on the other part, I come to the last part of my presentation on how we should understand the notion of thought leadership in our functions and role of leader. Inshallah, Dr. Mahzan will elaborate it further. But to give you some impression, a basic impression, when we talk about Qalb-guided leadership, basically, this idea need to be formulated. Okay, this idea is formulated from 4 different cardinal virtues or pillars. Number 1, we call it wisdom, and then number 2, we call it justice. Number 3, we call it courage, and number 4, we call it temperance. Wisdom, in Arabic, we call it hikmah. Justice, al-adlu. Courage is suja'ah, and temperance is ifah. So, these 4 different pillars or 4 virtues are very, very important in order to bring out or to carry out different other behaviors or actions or maybe manifestations and also outcome and output. And that's why when we do our research on this particular aspect, we studied Quran and Hadith, and we come back to the detailed ideas of how this wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance are interconnected, and also how they are very dependent to one another. Okay, but for the purpose of this session, I just want to highlight to all of you how these are very much related to our functions as leader in the context of the organizations or institutions. Number one, we take it the notions of wisdom. So wisdom is hikmah. Okay, I don't want to elaborate into what is wisdom in the context of a definition, but I just want to show to us, okay, to all of you, how in the context of Qalb-guided leadership, the Qalb-based leadership, we have to make sure the wisdom that we possess is in the very just situation. Okay, a very justly conditions and situation. You know why? If we don't have hikmah or wisdom, we come to this insufficient condition, which come out of manifest stupidity, madness, ignorance, and foolishness. Okay, but if people with wisdom, people with intelligence, use it excessively, okay, of course, in this context, misuse it, okay. So what are the results coming from this excessive kind of wisdom? Then we have swindling, fraud, slyness, dishonesty, and deceit. So what? So what we need to make sure ourselves do and attain in the context of wisdom is to have a balanced situation. There is discretion, excellence, understanding of the subtle implications of action, and hidden defects of the soul. So when we have this condition, so inshallah, we will in the very safe situation in the context of practicing wisdom. Okay. And when talking about courage, okay, courage means that shuja'ah, people who have firm, kind of decisions, ideas, actions. Of course, this need also to be balanced, okay? Because if we are having insufficient amount of courage, the outcome is this one: ignominy, self-abasement, and cowardice. But if we have or we apply excessive courage, then we have this question: arrogance, conceit, and pride. Okay, it's another aspect. But in order for us to have or to be a good leader, we need to have courage. We need to do and to implement courage. Okay, but we have to make sure we have a balanced kind of courage, because the result is nobility, dignity, endurance, and suppression of rage. Okay, this is another aspect. And another part is talking about temperance. Okay, temperance is how we can manage ourselves in context of we are not trap ourselves just focus on one single thing, whether it's good or bad. Okay, we have to make sure that we can control ourselves to not what you call it, entertain more to the carnal or evil or greedy part of soul. Okay, so in this context, when we say insufficient outcome of temperance, we have spite, extravagance, stinginess, ostentation, and immorality. Okay, if we have excessive temperance, okay, we have greed, cupidity, and obstinacy. But we have to make sure we are having a balanced temperance, which it will manifest generosity, modesty, patience, and tolerance. And lastly, we're talking about just, okay. So talking about just in this context, basically, there's no insufficient and excessive justice. So there is no insufficient and excessive justice compared to the other three pillars. Courage, the key just now, but wisdom just now, and also about temperance just now. But when talking about justice, justice is defined as the absence of justice. The absence of justice is called tyranny. Meaning that if we do not have justice, it means that we have tyranny. That's why in the context of how to be just in this context, you have to demonstrating balanced, fair decision making, good and negotiating skills, good negotiating skills, effective communication, and also compassion, cordial relation. So this is the tip on how we should implement just. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think my time is already there, and for my concluding remark, I just quickly would like to give motivation to all of us, since all of us are leaders in many important situations, many important institutions and organizations. So, when we talk about leadership, basically, leadership is about creating the needed change. It's about giving services. Okay, this is the key terms of leader or leadership. It's about creating the needed change. It's about giving services. That's why did you keep doing what you are doing? Okay, you being as a leader, as a executive chairman, as a director, as a chief, okay, as a manager for your organization, for NGO, for years, not 2-3 years, but already 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Why are you still there? Why you still want to have this amanah and trust? Because I believe you want to create the needed change. Okay, you are driven by a sense of responsibilities, and you are driven by a sense of accountability, and you are driven by your clarity of purpose, and you want to influence people positively. These are the reasons why you are still there as a leader in your organization. Okay, of course, these are the example of people who already have this reason. Okay, Buya Hamka, almarhum Buya Hamka, almarhum Professor Aziz, Professor Atas. Okay, this is another one. The Ku Kim, Stephen Hawking, Mr. Mandela, Gandhi. Okay, so these are among the present people who believe in the ideas, believe in the notions, and they strive and fight for this. And finally, I will say, you are leader in your place. It's not because a title or position. It's not because of a title or position. Okay, it's not driven by reward, power, or no status. It's not about creating the needed, but it's about creating the needed change. It's driven by responsibilities, amanah. It's driven by accountabilities. It's driven by clarity of purpose. And because you are guided by your Qalb, you are guided by your spiritual consciousness. With that, I thank to all of you for your attention and patience. Sekian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much for such an amazing sharing, Dr. Rushdan. Now, I will open the floor for Q&A session. For this, we will have about 10 minutes to address questions from the audience. You can either type your questions in the chat box, or you can click the raise your hand emoticon, and I will invite you by name to ask the question. So for the first question, let's see. Okay, I would like to invite Brother Ahmad Muslim Ali to turn on your camera and microphone. Do introduce yourself, where you are from, and your question.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, brothers and sisters. I'm sorry, I'm not switching on my camera because my camera is not so good, so I have to move back 10 feet if you want to see me. So if I put the camera on now, you only will be able to see my nose and my eyes. So I have to get a new camera. Okay, brother, thank you, Professor Rushdan, for your presentation. And I just would like to ask you, pertaining to one slide on wisdom, the levels of wisdom. Yeah. And so if you have too much wisdom, it can lead to swindling, fraud, dishonesty, and so on. So I'm a bit disturbed by this definition. I know, Justice, you have shown us that in the case of justice, there is no such thing as excessive justice. But in the case of wisdom, how can there be excessive wisdom that leads to swindling, fraud, and dishonesty? Thank you, brother.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Muslim. Very good observation. I do appreciate your ideas regarding how we should articulate wisdom, on how we can have the excessive wisdom. Yeah. Yes. Practically, I put it in this way. Okay. You have seen people misuse power for their own interest. How they come to that kind of activities or actions. I mean the corrupt leaders. They always give a very nice, sweet promise before they take a position as leader. Once they're given the trust, they can simply become a different person. And put it in a different way, in context those who fraud million or billion of USD money, okay, I mean, or whatever, a different currency of money that we have in this world. They are not the people who live in the village, in kampong. They are not people who they are not people who not go to the university. Okay, people who commit this are those who have not only one degree, there are 2 or 3 different degrees of study. Okay, some of them not only a senior lecturer, but they also associate professor and professor, senior professor. Okay, so here I just want to let people understand in the context of wisdom here, I refer it to the intelligence, the IQ. The IQ in the sense of people have intelligence, of can do many things, they have different skills, they have different abilities to comprehend, to to do strategies, but they can't really manage to control their own self, their own very self, when the we call it the contradictions of the positive and negative wisdom come together when they want to make decision on certain things. Okay, basically, when we talk about wisdom, we know that wisdom is something good. Intelligence is something good. But in this context, we want to show how the excessive kind of wisdom, because they can't control their they can't desire, it can lead us or lead them to practice this slyness, dishonestly, swindling, and fraud. And I mean, you can put it in different terms as well. I mean, maybe you don't use the word wisdom. Maybe you just say they are not having wisdom when they do that. Okay, but I just want to show to you that before they come to that point, they have wisdom, but then they misuse the wisdom. Yeah, so this is the point that I want you to see by wisdom or through wisdom, of course, by misuse the wisdom, by abuse the wisdom, not to say by wisdom per se, but by misuse the wisdom, by misinterpret the wisdom, or by abuse the wisdom. This is the point. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the question and answer, inshallah. So within our time limitation, we only can take the second and the last question. So I would like to invite, okay, some actually raised their hand in the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Assalamualaikum.
Okay.
Can we ask question? Kakasali from Philippines.
Kakasali, all right. So this is gonna be the last question.
Yeah.
And for other question, for unanswered question, there is a separate Google form for participants to fill in, and we will try our best to address it separately after the webinar. Okay, so go ahead, sister.
Yeah, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dr. Professor Muhammad Rushdan, my question is, we all know that to be a good leader in our organization, it is really necessary to have this hikmah, right? But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Baqarah, number 269, he said that yu'atil hikmata man yasha, meaning it is really Allah who bestow wisdom to a certain person. Do you think that for us to have this hikmah, which is not excessive, no, as you said, it should be balanced hikmah. Do you think that it is really necessary to have a qalbun salim, a pure heart, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestow to us the balanced hikmah? That's all. Thank you so much.
Yeah, indeed, I very much agree with Sister from Philippines with that point. Yu'ti man yasha wa man yu'ti hikmah faqad utiya khairan katsira. So Allah mentioned it clearly. We need to seek a hikmah from Allah. Because what? Because this hikmah will bring us to the many other good deeds and will be benefit to others. So here in this context, we can't move ourselves, we can't move others, we can't move our organization if we do not given this hikmah, or we are not actually try our best, our level best to get this hikmah. Okay, hikmah here can be understood in two different ways. One is from our effort. Here in the context of we try to understand, we do our job. I mean, we study, we do our great plan. Okay, we do strategy. Okay, we always discuss with others to do something before we do something. But do not forget. Okay, do not forget. Hikmah is in the hand of Allah. Allah is the one who possesses the hikmah, and He will give to us when we deserve to have it. And if we are actually among the chosen people who will get it, okay. So this hikmah can be also understood as tawfiq and hidayah as well. Of course, as a leader, we know that we really at a very dire need to have hikmah, because every single word that we say, every single act that we do, always will take as model and example by our colleagues, by our followers. So we have to understand that we shouldn't be in the wrong action. That's why being hikmah. So I think as a leader, we have to think twice before we say something. Okay, we have to think twice before we make a call, before we do our judgment. Okay, that's why we said to be a leader is not easy. It's amanah, this is a trust, and every situation that we do, always we are responsible for that. Thank you very much, our MC. I don't want to take Dr. Mazan's time. And thank you very much to all others audience for your participation and attention. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you, Dr. Rushdan, for the, mashallah, the enlightening answers, inshallah. Again, I remind to all participants, for unanswered questions, there is a separate Google form in the chat box. So feel free to fill it in. And we will try our best to address it separately after the webinar, inshallah ta'ala. So, right now, as a token of appreciation, Dr. Rushdan, do receive a gift from us, inshallah ta'ala. We will go for the group photo session, and I'd like to invite everyone to open up the camera again and give the huge, big, bright smile. Okay. Right. Everyone ready? All right, in the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Everything is clear? One more. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for the cooperation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us dive into the discussion of Qalb-based Leadership and Sustainable Development Goals. So for this one, I would like to invite Yang Berbahagia, Associate Professor Dr. Mahazan Abdul Muttalib, the Director of Center for Community Engagement and Industrial Relation, USIM. Please welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Can I test my speaker? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, alhamdulillah.
Clearly? Very clear. I'm now testing my new device. Hopefully with the new speaker, I can with the new microphone, I can reduce some visual distraction on Saturday because I'm at home with 4 boys around me. So pardon me if there are some, it is part of sustainability study as well when we are talking about kids. Alhamdulillah, yang bahaya, my friend, the Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Rushdan Jalani, is my neighbor at the faculty, but currently is my boss at the university. Thank you very much for the enlightening talk. And of course, Yang bahagia Tuan Haji Nicholas Sylvester Muhammad Abdullah, the Executive Chairman of Regional Development Community, RDC, a person who need no introduction in Malaysia. He's a very well-known da'i, and I'm so impressed knowing him, listening to him this morning. Very, very enlightening speech. Yang bahagia Senior Haji Ahmad Nazar, the Deputy Chairman, RDC. Thank you very much for staying, sir. My friend is Professor Dr. Muhammad Zain Kanda at the Center for Sustainability and Serenity, C4SS USIM. All the professors, friends, brothers and sisters, members from USIM as well as RDC. Very good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So how are you, everybody? We have been listening from Dr. Rushdan for about 1 hour plus. Very philosophical, isn't it? But that's Qalb-based Leadership. We cannot avoid it. Maybe I can add some information from Dr. Rushdan before I go to my slides. That the source of our information on top of the Quran and Hadith that Dr. Rushdan mentioned in his talk. We have basically got all the theoretical ideas from the book of Ihya Ulumuddin of Hujjatul Islam, Imam Ghazali, as well as related Sharah Ghazali. Like, the recent one is from Syed Muhammad Naqib, Professor Dr. Syed Muhammad Naqib Alatas, and Professor Dr. Wan Muhammad Norman Daud from International Islamic University Malaysia, who wrote a book on Eclipse Leadership Competency Model for the Bank Negara for the Bank Negara Malaysia, and that the wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance component was theoretically discussed, conceptually discussed thoroughly by Ghazali, and now it has been used quite extensively in many spiritual and religious Islamic leadership talks. So we use that idea. very fresh. We try to give more contents, more inputs to it based on our issues of leadership today. So my role is to extend the discussion to SDG. Normally, when we conduct leadership training, I'm going to talk theoretically about the association of traits and behavior. And but for the purpose of our conference today, after discussing with my friend Dr. Zin Kanda, then we try to connect it to SDG. I have my slide with me, maybe in order to help everybody. Please interject, ask me question if the moderator allow, if you need more clarification on certain points. Okay. Okay. Can you see my slide? You got my slides?
Yes. Alhamdulillah.
Right.
Very good. Yeah, mashallah.
This is my slide, but that's basically no, I rename it, but it's a compilation of works as well as discussion of Qalb-guided leadership, extended discussion of Qalb-guided leadership from the talk of Dr. Rushdan from leadership behavior perspective. So my title that I'm thinking suitable for our webinar today is Qalb-guided leadership and sustainable development goals, SDG. And you can see a lot of logo up here. We have USIM, our university, alhamdulillah. We have over here, we have this is the Kampung Mizan logo. This is a research center belong to the Faculty of Leadership and Management. And from this center, we have established a Mizan Knowledge for Change Hub. These two centers, or this center is basically managing community-based projects under the Faculty of Leadership and Management. It's established a bit earlier than C4SS. That is now led by our friend Dr. Zin Kanda. I was one of the academics who participate in the discussion of developing C4SS since 2016, because we need quite a number of organizations at USIM, one to manage people, another one to manage all the infrastructure, environment, and everything, which involves so many expertise. And Dr. Zin is here helping, alhamdulillah. For the Qalb guided leadership, from this morning we listened from Dr. Rushdan. The idea was established based on the research conducted by under the sponsor of the Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia since 2016. Thank you very much to them. And we are now conducting various leadership guided leadership training for the Center for Leadership Development, Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia. And for the SDG, the Mizan thing, part of it was basically sponsored by Bank Rakyat since 2016, alhamdulillah. And now all the project, in order to give an idea of SDG over here. When we are talking about SDG, we cannot detach ourselves from UNESCO, because SDG is part of UNESCO idea or focus, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. We are working with our international partners, which is UNESCO, UniTwin, University of Victoria, as well as PRIA. All these will be discussed later, inshallah. So in order to give like a short introduction to me about me, that you are listening to me, so you need to know me. So hopefully after this we can engage more. My name is Mahazan Abdul Muttalib. Thank you very much to the chairperson, the sweet chairperson. Thank you very much. And I'm currently working at the Faculty of Leadership Management as an associate professor. I'm a director for Center for Community Organization and Industrial Relations at USIM. And prior to this, I was the director for the Research and Innovation Center University at USIM, as well as I'm leading a research center called the Mizan Research Center, the one that I introduced just now. I'm heading a hub under the Mizan Research Center called the Mizan Knowledge for Change Hub. This is a global consortium that I'm going to introduce to RDC. Maybe Dr. Zain is there. After this, I've talked to Dr. Zain before about this, and he also attended some seminars organized by UNESCO Canada, just to understand some of the updates of SDG globally. My education is I got a PhD in management from Universiti Utara Malaysia and a master's degree from Monash. But basically, I'm an Islamic studies graduate. I got a first degree in Da'wah as well as in history in diploma in Malaysia. This is my email. Yeah, you can maybe later I can share with you. Okay, regarding my presentation today, I have 1 hour. Chairperson, if I'm, please guide me with the time. And in order to help, this is a broad topic. It's about leadership as well as SDG. We need, if Dr. Rusdan needs 3 days, I need 1 week if I'm able to do that. SDG is big, So I divided the talk into 3. Inshallah, we'll extend. First, let's talk again about, let's recap about leadership and guided leadership from Dr. Rusdan and what has been doing in Malaysia until today. And also USIM. Number 2, I'm going to relate the guided leadership and SDGs as promised. And the third one, part 3, is the Mizan Knowledge for Change Hub and Mizan Research Center, USIM and SDG, and some of the collaborating partners of it. And the partners are not exclusively established for USIM. We basically join them. It is a global network, not just Malaysia. And maybe RDC later, through C4SS at USIM, since we have signed MOU. That is the purpose of having a memorandum of understanding between RDC and USIM in order to leverage on whatever that we have. We can collaborate and work on our to get some advantages from whatever that we have from both parties. So part 1, leadership and guided leadership. All right. Normally, I always start my discussion about leadership with the idea of ihsan. I need to minimize this. All right. The guided leadership in Islam, even the leadership in Islam, the one that Dr. Rusdan said, is stand on the concept of ihsan. We do understand what is ihsan. It is just like we are doing everything for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We do things as we are worshipping Allah, straight away worshipping Allah, like we are seeing Him, even though we are not seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala physically. We do believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing us on whatever that we are doing, not just from spiritual religious activities, but also other activities, including our community engagement. Hablum minallah wa hablum minan nas. So compassion in Islamic standpoint means it is a total commitment. When that's the source of our understanding of ihsan, it is a total commitment of us as a servant of Allah, as a servant of Allah, hamba Allah. Then for whatever that we are doing, we are basically doing it for the right, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything. Even we ask Allah for guide in order to guide us, moving toward that path. With or without knowledge, we hope Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant us knowledge in order to have the feeling at our heart, inside our heart, that whatever that we are doing is for the sake of Allah. It is very difficult, easy to say than do. Small things. Sometimes we always think about us first, ourselves first, then we think about Allah. But the context of amanah is very central in leadership. We are going to talk about it later. And in Surah Al-An'am, verse 82, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, A'udzubillahi minasyaitanir rajim, Alladzina amanu wa lam yalbisu imanahum bizulmin ulaika lahumul amn wa hum muhtadun. They who believe and do not mix their belief with injustice, those will have security and they have rightly guided. Which means that the guided leadership, as presented by Dr. Rusdan just now, the wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, maybe I can a bit help, maybe add some information to the question posed about wisdom this morning. So yes, that's correct, whatever that been explained by Dr. Rusdan, but the guided leadership stands on the understanding of balanced, integrated, rightful function of wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, where justice stands in the middle of everything. The understanding of justice is tied closely to wisdom. What is wisdom? That is true knowledge of understanding the right and wrong. So when the wisdom is basically, misaligned or wrongly aligned, we got wrong information, wrong knowledge about something, then it's going to be excessively use the wisdom for the wrong purpose, then it's going to cause chaotic situations or even sinful situations close to ma'asi. So the wisdom over here comprises of knowledge, and justice is the understanding of the knowledge in the sense of a person able to differentiate, do not mix between belief, and the injustice, what is right and what is right and what is wrong in terms of Sharia, in terms of Sharia, in terms of everything. So the ability of a person to differentiate what is right and what is wrong, and to put justice in everything based on the right wisdom is central in Qalb guided leadership. We'll talk about it later. And in addition to the concept of ihsan, Qalb guided leadership in general is also guided by the objective of Sharia. How to practice wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance in our reality. So we need to properly use all the methods regarding the Sharia Islamiyah in every aspect of life. And we do understand that each aspect of activities in politics, in ibadah, in fasting, in muamalah, we have specific disciplines on how can we benefit from Quran and Hadith, Ijma' and Qiyas, and so many other corpus of knowledge in Islamic studies, as well as in science, as well as in other fundamental aspects of knowledge. And we need to use all of the knowledge in order to answer the objective of Sharia. There are 5 fundamental objectives of Sharia, which is number 1, to promote and to preserve faith. Number 2 is to promote and to preserve life. Number 3, to promote and to preserve intellect, progeny, as well as wealth. Excuse me. So Ubay, please help. Mati. All right. My kids just got up from their bed Saturday morning. All right. In Suratul Hujurat, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says, A'udzubillahi minasyaitonir rajim. Innamal mu'minuna ikhwatun fa aslihu baina akhawaykum wattaqullaha la'allakum turhamun. So the translation is, the believers are but brothers, so make settlement between your brothers and fear Allah that you may receive mercy. Why I'm having this verse on top of my discussion, my introduction of Qalb guided leadership, before we go to the definition of it later, I would like to stress on the concept of ikhwah. Now we are having RDC members all around the globe, and USIM, the 12th public university of Malaysia out of 20, the second Islamic university in Malaysia. We are here this morning, blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just to know between each other and to establish ikhwah. And the word ikhwah over here in Islamic understandings, which underpins Islamic leadership as well as Qalb leadership as well, has been used quite extensively by researchers in the field of community-based research and sustainable development goals, where I'm going to explain in part 2 of our discussion today. So this is our main source. Ukhuwah is basically the fundamental of our leadership activities, part of Qalb guided leadership. Well, in a hadith by Imam Bukhari, on top of ikhwah, our Prophet said, a person has no faith until he or she loves the brothers or others as how he or she loves him or herself. La yu'minu ahadukum hatta yuhibbu akhihi kama yuhibbu li nafsihi. Something like that. So the faith loving others, loving people around us, the spirit of helping others is basically part of it. It's basically part of Qalb-guided leadership. When we have applying wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance without a thorough, a complete, a comprehensive understanding of ihsan, and that give us, low quality of engaging with others, we need to relook on our Qalb if that is the case, because Qalb-guided leadership involves the education as well as the exercise of leadership at all levels, individual levels, community levels, organizational levels, in order to enrich, enhance our leadership ability inside out, where our heart is clean, our heart is clear, our actions are stable, regardless of environment. Then we are constantly fight in order to be, mujahada, in order to contribute, in order to help others, in order to lead and get, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bear in your mind why I'm saying this is part of my passion when I'm talking about leadership. That's because from conventional Western perspective of leadership, the scholars over there, they seem to agree that leadership behaviors of an effective leaders are mostly influenced by their external factors, which means that a good member, a good leader from one organization might not be a good leader at another organization. Yes, it is true in some sense, but at actual leadership attribute perspective, in Islamic perspective, the Qalb-guided leadership, it must be stable because it is inside out, because it involves the exercise, the education of heart. So it must be stable. That is the science of Islam. That is the science of Islamic behaviors that we are basically inherited and studied for hundreds of years. So how leadership is important? I love this work by Mendel. Mendel, if you love to study leadership, get this article by Mendel in 1995, page 30. The title is The Romance of Leadership. Leadership is something, it's very easy to say. It is a romance of it. Or everybody wants to speak leadership. Engineers want to talk about leadership in their context. And some of them have done very well, like the Dr. Ustaz Hisham At-Talib, an Iraqi, who wrote a book, Tadribul Qiyadi, the exercise of Islamic leadership, an engineer in electrical and electronic background. He wrote that book, and the book has been published, has been translated into more than 15 languages. And people talk about leadership, but Mendel said this is quite true, that the word is always heard, and we can feel its significance, but the concept must be comprehensible and has clear foundation, and it must able to provide clear perspective on what leadership is, particularly in the aspect of social construction. This is what a Western scholar of leadership said in 1995. That's why leadership, we can always see and feel leadership as a symbol. We can see the symbol of leadership when a person with a title over there, like Dr. Rushdan said, the leadership is a post, director here, vice chancellor, deputy vice chancellor, and everything. It is a symbol. It is a sign that that person is a leader. So that's okay, but it must be integrated with other conventional knowledge, which means like management, psychology, politics, religious study, in order to make it, to make it right. The foundation must be must be right. Otherwise, the leadership study is just like an art, a study about something which has no basis. But over here in Qalb-guided leadership, we try to give the basis of leadership from the perspective of Islamic leadership. Yeah. Leadership is responsibility, not power. Al-qiyadah taklif wala tashrif. This is a wisdom, a wise word by our ulama. Leadership is a responsibility and not an honor. The first part of Qalb-guided leadership is the understanding of amanah, responsibility, and try to get rid of the understanding that when I'm being appointed as a leader, it is an honor to me, it's my right. Lagi teruk, it is worse if we consider it to be my right. It is our right to be a leader. I'm the rightful heir of basically something, the leadership. So it is an amanah, and the responsibility in leadership in whatever tasks and functions a leader should undertake or endure is bound with the basic principle of fulfilling trust. Amanah bestowed upon mankind as leaders or the Khalifah. Do you still got my slides with you? Excuse me?
Yes, still.
Good,
Still there.
Alhamdulillah, yeah. So it is based on the understanding of Khalifah. I just read one comment at the chat box about a book, Al-Ahkam Sultaniyah wal Wilayat Ad-Diniyah by Mawardi. Yes, that is a concept, a very classical idea of Islamic leadership by Imam Al-Mawardi, Qadi Al-Qudah, that talk on the siyasa from the perspective of siyasa syariah. So it is also part of leadership, but it's very much on the state leadership. And the one that we are saying is spiritual and general leadership, which based on the exercise and education of heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, A'udzubillahi minasyaitonir rajim, Walaqad zara'na li jahannam katsiran minal jinni wal ins lahum qulubun la yafqahun biha wa lahum a'yunun la yubsiruna biha wa lahum adhanun la yasma'una biha ulaika kal an'ami bal hum adall ulaika humul ghafilun. Sadaqallahul azim wa liyaz billah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has witnessed in the Quran, said in the Quran that in the hellfire there are many jinns as well as men. Who are they? They are people with hearts, but they don't use their heart in order to understand the right wisdom. When they have in Ihya Ulumuddin, wisdom is basically discussed together with the book of knowledge. The right knowledge, the understanding of knowledge, the godly knowledge, the earthly knowledge, the integration of knowledge. When we wrongly understand the concept of knowledge until it misguides us, we understand wrongly about behaviors. We do not want to learn. We close the heart from learning the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those people are basically one category of people who's going to reside in the hellfire. And those who are having ears and they do not want to listen about the right wisdom, the right advice, as well as they have their eyes, they don't want to hear, they don't want to see, as well as their ears, they don't want to hear. They are worse than animals. And ulaika humul ghafilun. And they are basically, forgetting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a warning by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran that the person can be a Khalifa, a good servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if that person able to educate and exercise the qalb, the heart, correctly. Correctly. Right. This is, in order to help everybody, at least from the words, we can see some photo. I'm not sure where is this, but it's happening everywhere. Some of you are friends from India. We are in Malaysia. We are having this. I've been to India quite many times due to population and everything, but our heart must be touched to this. The poverty, the issue of poverty is basically killing us. I'm so happy to read the work of RDC, as well as the presentation of the chairman this morning regarding activities, community activities conducted by the RDC members. Congratulations. And I hope that USIM can learn from RDC from the activities that you have done, inshallah. Leadership is amanah. This is a professor, a friend of mine at the International Islamic University of Malaysia, who wrote the book of Islamic leadership. This is his definition about leadership. Leadership centers on trust, amanah, which covers a psychological contract between leaders and their followers that will try their best to guide, protect, and treat their followers justly. You cannot lump everything in your leadership contract. You can just have the job scope, job spec, of a director, job scope, job spec, all the trust to the vice chancellor, but you cannot lump everything. But it's beyond that. Qalb-guided leadership involves a psychological contract that we are going to take care of our heart as well as the heart of the followers. We are going to guide the followers, not just us, toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we are going to fight against munkar. We are going to promote ma'ruf in our organization. So that's part of the trust, regardless whether it is Islamic organization or non-Islamic organization. Even the West, they are talking about ethics more. Recently, the Secretary General of United Nations has said that our world today can get A for science, but F for ethics. When we are talking about the production of vaccines, where we can see the unjust distribution, unequal distribution of vaccine in the aspect of opportunity and everything. So it is a very huge problem. So leaders can be leaders if we work as leaders. We use our heart to transform and not just only bind to the written documents in front of us. That require a person with the right wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. A person without all these 4 qualities, Naqib Al-Atas said it is the 4 cardinal virtues, will not be able to translate or interpret that requirement. That person will just only focus on the contract that he or she has been given as a leader. So it involves psychological contract. It involves psychological amanah. So it's more than work, more than administration work that we always understand about leadership. In Surah An-Nisa, Allah SWT said, indeed Allah commands you to render trust to whom they are due, and when you judge between people, to judge them with justice. Excellent is that which Allah instructs you. Indeed Allah is ever hearing and seeing. Right, that is the overall maybe definition of it. Normally in my talk about leadership, I will continue about the behaviors, the correlation between attributes, sifat, as well as af'al. So how can we connect it? And how does the WJCT, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, has both components of internal and externals? We're going to see about it. In Malaysia, this Qalb-guided leadership, maybe I can introduce it to you, is basically a formal module, a leadership academic, an academic leadership training module for lecturers. We have 30,000 plus lecturers in the Ministry of Higher Education. Through this Orange Book has given us the permission, alhamdulillah, thank you very much to the ministry, to USIM members to join the leadership, higher education leadership academy, to conduct training to all academic members. And now we are also doing it for other partners like the Malaysian Youth Councils, the students, the Ministry of Defense, and many more. You can go to this, to here, click here, you can get the book, maybe read somehow this Orange Book, we call it, from the University Transformation Program 2019. So these are the definitions of it. I'm not going to read to you line by line. It's basically in higher education, we are trying to connect between leadership as well as the national education philosophy. We want our academics to, really embrace the idea of national education philosophy in their heart, managing their heart to support the national education philosophy and be a very effective academics at higher education institution, where we work to educate our students beyond the key performance indicators. So all lecturers, they are experts, they are professors, associate professors, doctors, and maybe scientists and everything. They have the mental expertise capability in order to translate the activities beyond paper. So that's what we are thinking, and that's what we are preaching at the ministry level. So it involves values. So these are the things, these are some of the summary on the wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. My thought over here, maybe my argument based on the reading of Ihya Ulumuddin, especially from chapter 4 on disciplining the soul, that wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, as explained by Dr. Rushdan this morning, has two aspects, the internal and externals. It has the internal part of wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. When we have that we are able to, to manifest it, to externalize it. So the internal part, when we have the right wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, is a person will be able to become, forgiveness at the right place, has humility, passion, trustworthy, reflection, moderation, righteousness, equality, sense of unity, team spirit. A person who's not going to be able to, to ignore activities, to ignore amanah. A person who cannot, a leader who cannot put aside something that he or she can understand to be very important for the people, followers, as well as organization, with or without order. A kind of busybody kind of person. So a person who want to do things, who want to contribute, that internally there, the feeling is there, and have humility, always engage others to understand things. So that's also part of wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. And at the behavioral levels, that person will be able to show so many qualities of good behaviors, as well, not limited to the list of inventory of effective behaviors that have been found by science in the field of business and everything. I'm not going to read to you line by line, but the concept is like that. The wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance has both internal and external part of it. It is not a philosophical ideas. It is not just values. It is there inside our heart, but balance of it, educate it, exercise it, and we're able to translate it into behaviors. We call it the 4 cardinal virtues of Qalb-guided leaders. So in general, the idea is basically started from the element of taqwa. The Qalb-guided leadership starts from the element of taqwa, and from taqwa, from activities of ibadah, zikir, and everything. It helps us to educate our Qalb, to move the ladder into nafsul mutmainnah, to educate our soul. And finally, we'll equip our Qalb with the balanced components of wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Wisdom involves intelligence, courage involves the motivation, the motivation to control the bad desires, the motivation to do good things. Justice is the ability to differentiate between right and wrong. Temperance is the personality. We are able to have iffah, to have ihsan and everything. When this is in between, the 4 cardinal virtues will guide the rest of the traits and behaviors. In conventional leadership, they don't have this. They just go straight away to the traits and behaviors that have been found to be effective. And everything is basically mapped or guided by the right understanding of Sharia. We summarize it under the maqasid Sharia, and of course, all the procedures that we normally use in order to interpret actions. And then we do our activities. That's the overall conceptual framework of Qalb-guided leadership that maybe I can share with you in this limited time this morning. And we call it catalog of virtues, the trees of Qalb. With the Qalb, with the right Qalb of justice, wisdom, courage, and temperance, all activities, all good behaviors, important behaviors that we read in the Quran, muhasabah, employee-oriented, wasatiyah, and everything is going to, can be produced, can be practiced. So these are the Qalb. And we normally, in our module, you can find the source of each criteria, each competency of leadership that we share here. I hope I still have time, moderator, or do I need to open for question and answer, at least for this part, before I move to part 2 of my presentation?
So the question and answer will be at 12:15 p.m. So alhamdulillah, you still have time.
All right, alhamdulillah. Okay, now I try to make it brief. That is Qalb-guided leadership. That is Qalb-guided leadership. An extended discussion from Dr. Rushdan this morning. And normally in the real presentation, I'm going to give you, I'm going to relate these 3 of Qalb-guided virtues with the component of effective leadership behaviors that have been found by conventional research. Then you can see that even the Western scholars in 2000, they found specific traits and behaviors, and how those traits and behaviors function to produce effective leaders, all the components, all of the understanding have been explained early in the Quran, alhamdulillah. So, for example, the importance of motivation and experience is basically central for effective leadership. In Islam, we have been talking about it earlier in the context of courage, in the context of justice, that we need to give the right place to the right person. We cannot give, leadership to the wrong person. That basically part of Islamic leadership prerequisites. So it has been effectively of having found to be important in various organizations in the West. Normally, we are going to have like a exercise discussions about this in real training session about Qalb-guided leadership. Okay, part 2 for today, since we are talking about SDG. For your information, at USIM, we have on top of Center for Sustainability and Serenity that is led by Dr. Zain Kandar, that was established, I think, last 2 or 3 years. In 2016, the word Sustainable Development Goal have been introduced to USIM by the former chairman before Almarhum Professor Dr. Siddiq Fadil. We have our current director of the International Islamic University of Malaysia, who was the chairman of USIM, Professor Tan Sri Zulkifli Abdul Razak, introduced us or encourage USIM to officially engage with activities related to Sustainable Development Goal in 2016, beginning 2016. So in order to do that, USIM has introduced, 2 activities, and now we have third. The third one is the establishment a specific center to manage Sustainable Development Goal activities, which is the C4SS, the Center for Sustainability and Serenity. So RDC is now working closely with C4SS on everything, and we have also other activities, other centers at USIM who can work together with Dr. Zain Kandar. Inshallah, we can make a lot of activities through it. The 2 activities, the 2 initiatives, I call it, at USIM on SDG that maybe I would like to share this morning is the first one is the Knowledge for Change Consortium, K4C. Knowledge for Change is K4C. It is a global consortium organized and established, introduced by the UNESCO Chair in Community-Based Research and Social Responsibility in Higher Education, University of Victoria, Canada, UVic in British Columbia, as well as Participatory Research in Asia, PRIA. They are an Islamic organization, but they are very academic. It is a co-UNESCO chair. University of Victoria was a chair named Emeritus Professor Bud Hall. And PRIA is basically like RDC in India that conduct participatory research and as well as community engagement activities led by Dr. Rajesh Tandon. Those who are basically having this who introduced this concept of K4C. Yeah? And we have number 2 is the Mizan Knowledge for Change Hub, K4C. There are a lot of hubs around the globe. I think around 25 or 35, something like that. 2 hubs are located in Malaysia, 1 in Indonesia. The Philippines got 1, I think. You can go to the website and try to study all the hubs of K4C. And USIM, we have this Mizan Knowledge for Change Hub. I'm going to explain to you. So what are we doing under this Knowledge for Change, and how and why am I explaining you this? So let me introduce you a bit. I think I'm selecting this topic because I'm talking to the community champion in front of me from RDC. UNESCO is basically, SDG got 17 goals. You know it. The sustainable, there is 17 goals of sustainable development. And from that goals, there are many things. Dr. Zain Kandar knows it too. But there are 2 exclusive goals that, from that 17 that has basically tried to be exploited by UNESCO specifically. Number 1 is goal number 4, which is education. And number 2 is goal number 17, partnership. The one that we are having MOU between USIM as well as RDC is basically recognized or encouraged by UNESCO in order to promote the activities to support SDG. There is even a chair at UNESCO to support this activity. We call it UNESCO Chair in community-based research and social responsibility in higher education. We have Professor Badhal as well as Dr. Rajesh Tandon. This was a photo that I took at India when the Mizan K4C hub was conferred with the hub status at UNESCO House, India. So the UNESCO Chair supports North-South and South-South partnership that build on and enhance the emerging consensus in knowledge democracy. I'm highlighting this word, knowledge democracy. Why? Because of the Qalb-guided leadership, as we mentioned just now, is very philosophical and involve inside-out activities. One of the criteria is humility. The knowledge democracy concept over here that the SDG is promoting is basically the UNESCO is promoting is about knowledge is shared by everyone. Knowledge should not only be gained or exploited at university level. It is there around the globe. The community sometimes has more knowledge than professors. So professors academics need to have humility in order to recognize the knowledge of the people, that the people knows best on their problem. So everything has been redesigned in the aspect of knowledge construction activities, and we have like a specific methodology of doing it under the community-based research activities. So that kind of training is basically conducted by UNESCO Chair through the hubs around the globe in order to propose or in order to promote collaboration between community and social civil societies like RDC with academia, and academia will learn more from civil society, not on the other way around. So the collaboration is mutual. So it strengthens recent collaboration between the higher education section in UNESCO, the Global University Network for Innovation GUNI, and Global Alliance on Community University Engagement, other regional and global networks. Maybe some of you knows this very well, that we can work with SDG and UNESCO through various platforms. One of the platforms is by working through their chair. Another platform is having our own regional center of excellence. We call it RCE. We have two in Malaysia. We have three in Malaysia, RCE. Number one is RCE in Universiti Malaya. The second one is RCE located in Universiti Sains, Malaysia. The third one is in UIA. The fourth one is at Curtin University Sarawak. So that's the second method. The first method, we can work with any chair established under UNESCO, and USIM is now working with UNESCO Chair in community-based research, and this is part of the activities with C4SS. So the activities of this UNESCO Chair is to co-create. The word is co-create, which means that we create the future together with community. It is not just like armchair writing of academics. I'm in front of you at USIM, I observe community, I interpret, use bombastic words, bombastic statements, write superb writings to explain knowledge of the community up to the level that community themselves do not know how to apply it. And the rest, we need to rely on civil societies like RDC in order to help others. So that's not the way. So we co-create new knowledge. We go down, we learn with the community together with the civil society through partnerships among universities, the academics, communities, civil society, and government policymakers. And what can we do by having all these partnerships? Is number one is to have new capacities. We recruit people up to a level that creative initiative, maybe collaboration between USIM as well as RDC to provide trainings at Orang Asli community settlement, to provide trainings on entrepreneurship with the poor and everything. We have new solutions to pressing problems related to sustainability. So sustainability, you need to understand that SDG has been discussed quite extensively before, but UNESCO has admitted that cannot achieve the goal of sustainability, the goal of sustainable development, except with the participation of civil societies as well as community in general. That's why the UNESCO is introducing SDG number 4, which is education, and they have a specific module of it called ESD, Education for Sustainable Development. So we use university, we use schools, we use civil society platform to educate people with sustainable development. So it is understood that SDG 4 covers all categories of SDG. Then we are hoping that the generation, the new generation, the people at large will participate in their activities. So that's what we are doing in these community-based activities, community-based chair. Social and economic disparities can be reduced. Inequality is a very ironic, very dangerous, or maybe touching statement, terminology that we need to explain today. Many research in Malaysia, for example, we talk about inequality from the perspective of economy, wealth inequality, but how about opportunities? Opportunities to speak, opportunities to express opinions, opportunities to knowledge and everything. So that's basically also part of SDG discussion. So if you are doing that, if RDC is doing that, bridging community with so many opportunities, you are basically directly or indirectly do or support SDG. Even beyond SDG, if we go back to Qalb-guided leadership, it's beyond 17 goals. We can have more goals, which is the Marcosic goals. Cultural exclusion, mistrust and conflict, awareness among policymakers, enhanced scholarship, and many others. And at the end of the day, the spirit of this must be embraced by academics as their understanding of social responsibility of higher education. So what C4SS and Dr. Zain Kandar doing now is basically a noble idea of establishing the awareness, the sense of social responsibility derived from the right interpretation of amanah, as in Qalb leadership. That is Qalb leadership. It is not Qalb leadership. It's not only being a leader, because we can see a leader sometimes we cannot see them. Shaitan, for example, we cannot see shaitan. We cannot see shaitan, Iblis, but they might be a leader to us, a leader to our soul if we don't erase them from us. So a leader is not necessarily through position. Leadership comes through influence. I forgot to explain to you about influence. Leadership comes through influence, but the one that we are trying to establish through Qalb leadership is to train and is to motivate leaders to use their internal power through their Qalb guided activities, exercise Qalb, educated Qalb, in order to influence others through, performing or delivering their social responsibility through higher education. So the chair works to facilitate the SDG, focus on SDG 17, partnership with institutions, as well as SDG 4, education for sustainable development, ESD. So they have just published a book, Socially Responsible Higher Education by Brill. There is a chapter about Malaysia by my friends in USM. USIM chapter is published at another book by UNESCO, Tokyo, where I'm going to explain to you or share with you later. So this book promotes, education and social responsibility of higher education, and also the concept of democracy of knowledge, democratization of knowledge, which means that knowledge is at the ground. Knowledge is not just possessed by scientists or in the lab. Engineers need to understand the people. People will help engineers to produce good innovation that benefit others. Then we need to have pure heart in order to do these activities. Under the UNESCO chair, they are now introducing the mentor training program, MTP, a 21-week course, a lot of components to educate or to train civil society members, academics like me, like you, in order to have the skills, the necessary skills working with community. So USIM participated in this activity. And Alhamdulillah, we have signed an MOU with the University of Victoria as well as PRIA and UNESCO to establish our Mizan K4C hub. That's an official hub under Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia to conduct our SDG activities. And C4SS is also part of it, since we are basically under the umbrella of research and innovation as well as USIM. So what is community-based? Community-based, I think, it need no introduction to RDC members. And what is community-based research? Why we are include this word research in order to help us to understand community activities. Community-based research, it is an action research that involves research partnership. We do research on community while we are helping them. You go and visit community, you do your charity, in the same time you conduct your survey, get their knowledge, try to understand their experience, try to solve their problem at their local center, at their localized problem or problem solving activities, and they solve their own problem, give increased capacity activities. It is done through research partnership between university, who are predominantly academics, as well as communities, and it involves experiential knowledge. The experiences of the community will guide the research. It's not on the other way around. It's not the normal process, conventional research process that we basically, the academic basically decide what is right and what is wrong to the community. And so it involves sharing of knowledge and information and empowering community to take a leadership role in the research process. Why I'm talking about why this is so much related to Qalb-guided leadership, because Qalb-guided leadership, as I mentioned this morning, just now, it involves direct and indirect leadership. So producing another responsible leaders are also part of us. In leadership, there are three components, leadership succession, leadership traits and behavior qualities and everything, leadership emergence, as well as leadership succession. It is the responsibility of a leader to create new leader in order to empower others, in order to make everything done, in order to make sure that the objective of Maqasid achieved. So it is important for Qalb leaders to produce other leaders, and for community-based activities is to empower communities leadership, in order to empower communities to take a leadership role, to do research at their own level and solve their own problem. So these are some of the activities. When I visited India, the Priya is my friend from Colombia, a professor in education who spoke to a group of students in India. Some of them are Muslims, Hindus and everything. Try to understand their issues in education. They love to meet people, alhamdulillah, but this is in 2018, I think. The pandemic has stopped us from engaging with our global networks. And maybe I can stress on here that CBR, the community-based research, seeks to democratize knowledge creation by validating multiple sources of knowledge and promoting the use of multiple methods and discovery. So the RDC members, you are doing community work. If we benefit, if we recognize, the academic recognize, validating the knowledge of the community, we are democratizing knowledge that only resides there at the community. Knowledge of living in jungle, talking to the environment of the Orang Asli. They basically understand their situation, their context better than academic. That knowledge belongs to them. The intellectual, it is an IP of the Orang Asli. We validate it, share with the rest of the world, democratize it. And that's basically also part of the community-based research objective. So this is the way of how we basically lead our activities through CBR, through community activities, in order to attain the sustainable development goals. These are some of the other activities which involve community education. I give you one example, maybe through, we do know that in India, we have quite, through my visit in India, I visited Tanzania as well as Uganda as well before. In India, we do understand that, child rape case is very, very heartbreaking. It happens there. So we talk about it, about these security issues of the kids, the ladies, the kids. And through the CBR approach, the participatory research in Asia as well as schools, they do understand that the security, the police force is not so much able, to provide security to the community. And they are basically, they are people who have no connection, have no opportunity to equal education because of poverty. They go down to meet the kids through religious organizations, mosques, temples, and everything. And they use participatory or community-based research approach in order to understand the feeling of the kids. They use drawing. They ask a group of girls, gather and try to draw their village and try to point some hotspots where they feel very fear of. They do not want to get across that hotspot where they think that they are going to be raped. So all that knowledge, all that problem solving come from the girls, come from the students. And the students are basically explain it to the academics, and they use that mapping, the community mapping, in order to change the whole security, the whole activities, to create some initiative in order to reduce the risk of girl rape in India. That's one example maybe I can share with you on the collaboration between academics, civil society, as well as girls. And they can solve a lot of problems through it. It is not just scientific research. It is a research designed or conducted for the purpose of helping the community. Well, maybe it is 12:15. I hope that I can have like 5 more minutes before I end. Okay, there are three methods of community-based research. And number one, we design research from the local setting. We have partnership, and number three is we learn new competencies from the community. So that's other thing that we are doing. And the last part, okay, maybe this is one example in Malaysia as well, for the benefits of everybody on top of Qalb-guided leadership. We have a microcredit system in Malaysia, like in Bangladesh, we have a Grameen Bank. In Malaysia, we have Amanah Ikhtiar Malaysia, who now belong to the government, but many don't know that this Amanah Ikhtiar Malaysia was introduced through community-based research, action research by David Gibbons and an academic from the Malaysia Sains University, a friend of mine, this friend, Associate Professor Suko Kasim. So this is established at university with the partnership of the community. Why they are doing microfinance research in 1986, early 1980, which is to solve the issue of debt, the micro debt at the community level. Before this, the Malay community in Malaysia, they borrowing money from Chetia, from the Indians money launder, something like that. So they are having credit from those people and they lost their land. So this initiative is basically established through community-based research. It is very, 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 very impactful, and has been conducted until today. And now USIM is working together with International University Al-Bukhari in Kedah for the same purpose, for the community of Baling in Kedah, Malaysia. So the last one is, maybe I can end my discussion by explaining a bit about the Mizan for change. Everything that we've been discussing in part 2 is now being managed by this Mizan Knowledge for Change K4C Hub. We have our own logo and everything. I do not want to, this is the photo that we've been converted with the hub status by UNESCO House India. But what I would like to explain to you about the overall methodology between the COP guided justice, balance and everything, the balance of things, and SDG that we are doing under this. This is my last slide. I have hundreds of slides over here, but maybe I can conclude it because of the constraint of time. The 17 sustainable goals is basically connected to, over here is the principles of balance in Mizan with COP inside it, of course, the leadership of it, which involve the components of equality, ubudiyah, shura, and as well as hurriyah. So we answer the Sharia, the maqasid al-Sharia on top of it. So we don't consider sustainable development goals as our goals. As an Islamic university, as a person, as a center of Islamic university, we consider maqasid Sharia as our goal. But we just use sustainable development goals as constructs, as specific domains that we can give more specific attention to answer by applying the right concepts of balance and justice, as well as COP, training of COP and everything, in order to give the spirit to our members that they are not doing things just for the name of sustainable development. What is sustainable world? Sustainable world has been defined by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, which is a world that is, peace, close to Allah, that is close to Allah and also close to the rest of the members. Hablu minallah wa hablu minan nas. We take care of our relation with Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala as well as the rest of the members. We are basically a community that promoting good as well as, fight against evil. Al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahyi anil munkar. Even there is a professor from Cambridge University named James Cook. You can Google James Cook, enjoining good and forbidding evil. Wrote a huge thesis at Cambridge University just to explain the importance of enjoining good and also forbidding evil as the central activity of sustainability. So we use sustainable development goals as basically goals that we can maybe examples, maybe targets in or as part of our endeavor, our jihad in order to fulfill the maqasid al-Sharia. And it is basically centralized with the right understanding of Islam, the Mizan, as well as the COP. Through the COP leadership, we basically move inside-out activities rather than we just focus on the sustainable development goals. I think that's all from me. Thank you very much for your patience. I'm very sorry for, my apology for any shortcomings as the kids just approached me for, Saturday morning. Very sorry for that. And I'm happy to interact. And if you have questions, let's discuss. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much for such an remarkable sharing, Dr. Mahazan. So now I will open the floor for Q&A session. For the first question, I would like to invite brother, I think it's a brother, Fazail Asra Ahmed, to turn on your camera and microphone. Do introduce yourself, where you are from, and your questions.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for providing me this opportunity. My name is Fazail Asra Ahmed. I am from Pakistan. I belong to legal fraternity and part-time visiting faculty member at a local university, Faculty of Law, University of Sialkot, Pakistan. I'm very much impressed by this webinar and especially this lecture by Dr. Mahazan Abdul Muttalib Sahib, which was rightly said, remarkable. Thank you very much. it has opened our eyes to many vistas. But my question is very simple, and it's not. It's a very simple question that the Quranic verse which was referred to in this webinar was Lahum Qulubul La Yafqahun, Surat Araf, ayat number 179. The part of the verse was Lahum Qulubul La Yafqahun. My question is that the function of thinking and understanding, I think, is of mind, rather that is of qalb. So how would you define and differentiate between the two functions of the qalb and mind? So you please remove my confusion regarding this. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think I should answer this directly. It's a very fundamental question. From the very beginning, when we established the Qalb-guided leadership, that we keep thinking about where is the location of this mudghah. That did our Rasulullah said about our health, talking about our heart, our heart, our cardio activities, or the mind. Lahum qulub la yafqahun. It is the connection between the two. No, the concept of Qalb over here is the knowledge is part of the heart. The wisdom is basically resided in the heart, and the intellectual activities are conducted in the brain. So that is the understanding. Even, let's try to understand happiness. Let's try to understand happiness. Where do we understand that? How do we understand that we are happy? Is it from the function of our heart or from the function of our brain? Where is our emotion? Wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Courage, to steadfast, to abstain from doing things. We got rishwah, bribery. People come to you and Mahazan, I have this under table, on table, now publicly announced, something like that. We abstain us from doing that. The power, where does the power reside? Is it in our qalb or our mind? Our mind rationalize it, but it is balanced with the qalb. The iman is in the qalb. The hadith, the Quranic verse is about iman. So that's why in my last slide, when I'm talking about this tranquil heart, everything is resided from the right definition of taqwa. So the taqwa is in the iman. From that taqwa, we interpret knowledge from our heart. From the foundation of iman, we have the emotion of the knowledge, and the knowledge itself is basically, processed in brain. So the connection is there. So even if you refer to Ahya al-Muddin, the discussion of chapter 4 on disciplining the soul is tied to chapter 1, which is the book of knowledge. So everything starts from knowledge. Of course, we understand knowledge from our brain, but the knowledge must get through our heart. At the end of the day, the knowledge that is understood clearly by our heart, and the heart is clear with the right and wrong aspects of it, is basically a person who has guided. The heart is basically guided, well guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's have another example, which is the invention of atomic bomb. If a person thinks beyond that, we are not going to have the catastrophe. I'm not saying that atom is wrong, atomic bomb is wrong, but the purpose of doing it, the understanding of purpose is very important. I have a book behind me, I think so. I think of my office. Even the West, talking about leadership, they are questioning this idea of purpose. The purpose is interpreted in the heart rather than mind. So the question that you are asking is very fundamental. It is also scientifically investigated. The evidence, like our Mr. Chairman said this morning, evidence-based discussion. I hope I gave you some evidence. The scientist is now talking about the connection of brain and heart in specific domain. They cannot speak generally. You know, scientists, they go very deep. They study about happiness, they study about well-being. So so they study about how brain will never be able to function effectively in balance to differentiate what is right and what is wrong, the true color of everything, when the heart is not in the peace situation, when the well-being is not there. So I think the science is there. So the answer is basically the interpretation of good knowledge is reside in the heart. It's reside in the heart, and it is tied with the concept of iman, concept of amanah, the concept of justice and everything. So without that, brain is just brain. It is just like a machine to process information. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for such amazing explanation, Doctor. So, there's another question in the chat box, which is Al-Bukhari International University is still around. Oh, Alhamdulillah, it is answered. Okay, let's see. Is there any questions from the participant? Okay, Alhamdulillah. There's one question from Kamar Abdullah. He raised his hand. So, inshallah, please turn on your camera and microphone. Do introduce yourself, where you are from, and your question. Let's see. Can you hear us, Brother Kamar Abdullah?
Maybe unmute? Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
MashaAllah. Wonderful and great knowledge that we have learned today. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum to all. My question is regarding the reconciliation of our lecture today, the Qalb leadership. How could you align or reconcile the Qalb leadership into a different kinds of leadership? Like, for example, there is a so-called servant leader, transformational leaders, etc., etc. In this particular subject, perhaps maybe you can give us a practical ways on how to align or reconcile our subject matter into those kind of leadership. Because I believe Prophet Muhammad SAW himself possessed the kind of leadership which is the servant leader, because you know, he overcome all aspect of leadership. Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much for the question. You are very right. Hold on. I try to avoid talking about leadership from beginning till end. If yes, I did my master's degree on the comparative analysis of servant leadership and Islamic leadership, and inshallah, now writing a book with Springer by. Maybe in this year we are going to publish it with my friend in Indonesia about this concept of servant leadership in Islam. You know, in leadership, let's go to the West. No, let's go to the West before we come back to Qalb guided leadership, which is very Islamic. From the work of a scholar named Burns, James McGregor Burns, that came up with the idea of transformational leadership. This is in political science. Burns is a political psychologist. He came up with the idea that a leader is a leader when you transform things. When you join any organization, you maintain it, you are not a leader. You need to change something. You need to bring something. Okay, fine. That's a good idea, but they put everything into the context of politics and psychology and organizational studies. So this idea of transformational leadership is moved to transactional leadership. Transactional leadership means let's do transaction. No, I'm here, I'll do this and you do this. I'm the chairman, I'll do this, The deputy chairman, you do this. You don't disturb mine, I don't disturb yours. And finally, the organization will benefit from it. Yes, that transaction. Tukar, exchange of things. And there are so many other concepts. So those transformational, transactional, basically we call it, it has their own behavior. It has specific behaviors of it. Established theories on how to conduct it, how to put it into process. And one of the theories is servant leadership, which is produced by a scholar named Robert Greenleaf, an engineer. Again, an engineer. Thank you very much to engineers. They put everything into processes. Alhamdulillah. So this Greenleaf, who work at the American telecommunication company, like our scholar in Islam, his name is Hisham At-Talib from International Institute of Islamic Thought. He basically, Greenleaf came up with the idea from his reading on the Buddhist and Christian manuscripts on Journey to the East. That in that journey, a leader is basically a servant to the followers, which means that you want to be a leader, you serve others first. When you serve, you are a leader. Something like that. So the philosophy is there, the processes are there. In leadership study, the behaviors, they discuss it. All these concepts are discussed in the context of traits, behaviors, and styles. So to become a servant leader, you need to have a specific trait. Almost same with Qalb-guided leadership. Of course, you need to put aside your individual needs. You are serving others, right? And you need to listen more. The concept of servant leadership is time for you that you spend to listen rather than talking. I'm not the leader now because I'm not listening. A leader basically sit down, understand, listen from the followers. That's servant leaders, and basically work to serve others. They have their own style, they have their own behaviors, and it carries certain traits. So this concept of traits, attributes of leaders, behaviors, activities of leaders, as well as style, approaches of leaders are quite extensively discussed in conventional leadership research setting. At the end of the day, scholars said, like Yokel, an emeritus professor from University of New York, I talked to him, I emailed him about my PhD. He basically questioned my PhD. But alhamdulillah, I got mine. That's normal in academic. He basically summarized everything, saying that into an integrated leadership model, where all the styles are basically bound or limited to specific contexts. That is the thing that puzzled me. Context, okay, fine, context, which means that to become effective, it is contextually defined. You might be a very, lousy father. Father is also a leader or mother, but you might be a very good managing director in any telecommunication company that produce profits to the organizations. At home, your kids are basically giving trouble to others through communication. Use social media badly, something like that. So the West define effectiveness through specific context. It has applications over there. But the Qalb-guided leadership is not about Qalb-guided leadership initially. It's about human being. When we refer to Ihya Ulumuddin, Ghazali talk about Qalb. It is not only for leaders, it's for everyone. Not only for leaders in organization setting, not only for leaders at mosque setting or community setting, it is for everyone. But the premise that Qalb-guided leadership try to have is, this is the one that many people love, to be honest, about Qalb-guided leadership, that it limits or it gives a platform for us to understand that internet no boundary. Our Qalb will change the context, not on the other way around. And we have, of course, even a Muslim, we have our Sharia to guide us, to help us understand the right and wrong. The stages of hukum help us a lot, how to react, how to interact with the world. You know this well. Some of you are from Pakistan, India, and everything. We have all this BR issue, BR, the environmental differences. So we use the science of Islamic studies to behave effectively in community. So the Qalb-guided leadership premise, the wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance is contextually free. In fact, focus on this, the premise is just like a person, a leader must be able to change the context beyond the organizational objective. That is not specifically explained in this servant leadership, transformational, transactional, distributed, and so many other leadership theories, except theories related to spiritual leadership, like Fry and everything, as well as in ethics of leadership. So they put leadership process, leadership knowledge into different compartments in the West. But Ghazali put everything into one concept. You have it first, then you can go everywhere. You're going to be a very stable person. That is Qalb-guided leadership, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for such an incredible explanation. We have learned a lot. And I think that for the last question, inshallah, is from Brother Ahmad Muslim Ali. So, brother, please introduce yourself, where you are from, and your question.
Okay. My name is Ahmad Muslim Ali. I'm and Rikoy. Now, we have been listening to lots of seminars, talks, and also been reading a lot about leadership in books, journals, newspapers, and so on. But I think there is one thing which is extremely important too, because if leadership is one side of the coin, that thing is on the other side. So the two are inseparable.
Yeah.
So in research and so on, in my opinion, it wouldn't be complete if you do one without considering the other. And what I mean by that thing is followership. And I think followership is important. We need, because there are more followers than leaders. Of course, everyone is a leader, but their levels are different. You have more levels, you have more leaders at the lower levels than the upper levels. If you count the followers, there'll be more than the leaders. Now, it is very important to educate followers on how to be good followers, because ultimately, a good follower can emerge to be a good leader. A follower who knows how to behave himself as a follower will ultimately influence leaders to become leaders too, to become better leaders too, besides influencing himself and his people around him to also become leaders, higher level leaders. So that's why I hope universities, especially faculties of leadership, can do more research on followership, because in my opinion, well, my hypothesis is that lots of problems that we have in this country, or for that matter anywhere else in the world, is due to these uneducated masses.
Yeah.
Because they are the ones who select the leaders, and from them leaders come from. If they are good, leaders will be good. If they're bad, leaders will be bad. So that's why, in my opinion, it is very, very important to study about followership too. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you are not wrong at all. You are very correct. Going back to the previous question, the style, behavior, traits, and everything that only focus on leaders, right? There are also in the West, there are theories like leader-member exchange, LMX, the distributed leadership by Peter Gron, talking about the leadership functions distributed equally to the followers. It's just like the energy of the leadership must be transferred to the followers. That basically answer your concern. The Qalb-guided leadership is not only for leaders. It is leadership. We are not talking Qalb-guided leaders. Qalb-guided leadership is only for everyone, including the followers. But perhaps the communication of content must be expanded in the context of followership too. That's I agree. Thank you very much for the very sharp observation. In research, I think if you talk about research, I've been supervising students in leadership. Most students do not want to do that because of it's difficult, very difficult. You know, you need to do comparison between followership and also leadership. But maybe later on, we can try to somehow think about it because of conceptually, the idea of followership is there already in theory as well as in some research conducted by some scholars. In my case, my personal observation, I need to be clear about this too. I've been conducting research mostly on leaders. That's a good idea that maybe I need to extend my research to followers too, and talking about this Qalb-guided leadership. Thank you very much. Ahmad Muslim.
Thank you, Dr. Mahazan, for insightful explanation and answers. Alhamdulillah. So, we do not have that much time again
But
for
maybe can I have 1 second? Maybe my last word.
Okay.
I'm so honored to talk to you. You know, to be honest, this is very pure from my heart. That I love to talk to basically civil society members. That I think that the world is getting better because of the work of so many NGOs who are working hard. And leadership is yours. You know, it is not belong to the community, to the top leaders, for example. It belongs to the whole members of the organization. That's what Ahmad Muslim Ali said. That's very important. And at university, we are trying to have this done at our students too. We do not want our students just to listen and do. They need to articulate the problems, interpret the problems, engage, solve the problems, and finally become the future leaders through followership activities and so forth. So hopefully that we can work together. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Deputy Chairman.
It's okay. It's okay. It's a very good point, mashallah. Thank you, Dr. Mahazan, for that amazing last words. It's for us to ponder and reflect, alhamdulillah. So again, for unanswered questions, do not worry. There is a separate Google form for participants to fill in, and we will try our best to address it separately after the webinar, inshallah. So as a token of appreciation, Dr. Mahazan, you receive a gift from us, inshallah ta'ala. And for the last group photo session, I'd like to invite everyone to open up their camera. So this is the last one, inshallah. So everyone open up the camera, show their brightest smile. Is the media team ready, inshallah? Where are you? Okay. Okay, alhamdulillah, everyone has opened it up, inshallah. I hope so. In the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Is it done, inshallah? All right. So another one more. 1, 2, 3. All right, alhamdulillah. Ala kulli hal. Thank you very much, everyone, again, for the cooperation, alhamdulillah. So moving forward on to our last agenda, ladies and gentlemen, let us invite yang berbahagia Tuan Haji Engineer Wan Ahmad Niza Zakaria, the Deputy Chairman of Regional Development Community Berhad, to deliver the closing speech. Please.
Okay, am I clear? Is my voice clear?
Yeah, very clear, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh. Wa na'udzu billahi min syururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Firstly, let me thank our respected Master of Ceremony, who has done very well today, Sister Nur Etasia. Our esteemed keynote speaker and officiator of the webinar, as well as a panelist, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Rushdan Jalani, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Student Affairs and Alumni, Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia, representing the Vice Chancellor of Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia, Professor Dato' Muhammad Riza Wahidin, Associate Professor Dr. Mahazan Abdul Muttalib, also our panelist, and Director, Center for Community Engagement and Industrial Relations, Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia. My dear Professor Madya Muhammad Zain Kandar, Head of Center for Sustainability and Serenity, Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia. My beloved brother and distinguished Dai, Tuan Haji Muhammad Nicholas Sylvester, Executive Chairman of Regional Development Community Berhad, and our RDC Berhad Chief Operating Officer, Tuan Haji Abdul Rahman Kasim. Our respected participants from Malaysia, including members of Gabungan Dakwah Malaysia or Malaysian Dakwah Alliance, and representatives of NGOs within our RDC network in the Asia Pacific countries, as well as alumni of Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia. You all have indeed honored us with your presence, and we truly appreciate your support to this webinar. And last but not least, dear members of the organizing committee from Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia and Regional Development Community Berhad, without whom we won't be able to enjoy our program today. To all, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Datuk, professors, our media friends, and all our respected audience. I'm indeed most honored to be here today to be part of this webinar, which is the first collaborative program by USIM and RDC Berhad since the signing of our Dear brothers and sisters in Islam and in humanity, RDC is taking big initiatives to embark on sustainable development goal initiatives in the Asia Pacific region, in partnership with NGOs within our network, whom we regard as our country partners or collaborators. That is why we have this program today. As we, RDC Berhad, we truly aspire to help improve and develop holistic leadership qualities within our NGOs to ensure effective and successful implementation of our projects. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam and in humanity, although this webinar is the first program that RDC Berhad has conducted in collaboration with the Center for Sustainability and Serenity of USIM, we believe that this collaboration between us would surely witness more similar initiatives taking place, knowing that, number one, the wide range of experience that USIM can offer, and number two, the huge network in the Asia Pacific region
that RDC Berhad possesses to enable us to explore, develop, and together implement sustainable development goal projects in the Asia-Pacific countries. Based on our initial studies, we have a good number of sectors. For example, health, education, entrepreneurship and economic, farming, infrastructure projects, empowering of women, and other community development initiatives that are open for us to expedite. This shall be our focus. Now, for each sector, the project can range from very simple projects to more sophisticated and bigger ones. Allow me to cite two examples. Number one, say in the sector of health and well-being, it can be as simple as a health awareness program or a health awareness program with health screening and so on. Or it can even go to providing rural health clinic facilities and ultimately even hospitals. Our partners in Mongolia, for example, had proposed to us the provision of ultrasound facilities. Why? To solve problem of high incidence of miscarriages in their villages. Okay, example number two, in the sector of clean water and sanitation, it can be as simple as having a manually pump wells, or upgraded to having electric pump wells with solar panels, or even upgraded to having storages, or to having filtration for better drinking water quality, or to having pipe network, and so on. Now, for these initiatives, RDC Berhad can't possibly do it alone. Instead, it needs to be carried out in collaboration or partnership with other NGOs and relevant stakeholders in each country. And of course, this is in line with SDG 17 itself, and that is partnership for the goals. My dear respected audience, as all of you have seen in our video montage, we have started planning other joint venture projects with USIM here in Malaysia. And inshallah, similar initiatives can then be replicated in the Asia-Pacific countries where the need arises. Of course, all these initiatives will require adequate funding for them to be implemented successfully. Firstly, we have our donor organizations and individuals who continuously support and contribute to our funding. Secondly, we also raise funds from the public through crowdfunding initiatives to support our projects. And for this, we'll welcome individuals or organizations to come forward and be part of our vision and to contribute, however small it may be, whether financially or by other means of support, towards the success of our mission. Thirdly, and importantly, in RDC Berhad, we do seriously look at income-generating initiatives that will ensure financial sustainability of RDC Berhad in the future. So, my dear respected audience, we know that in the Asia-Pacific countries, the level of development varies from country to country. And so the type of SDG projects required in a country will also differ. Some poor countries are still in need of basic facilities, so their priority will be projects that will improve the standard of living, while the more developed nations will look at achieving higher level of sustainable targets. And also, NGOs from some countries may be better positioned to assist NGOs in other countries. Although RDC Berhad is a Muslim philanthropic organization, our work, that is our reach, our engagement, and those benefiting from our work transcends religion, race, and nationalities. Therefore, we would expect our NGO as country partners to engage with communities around them and be relevant to them, understand their needs, and assist them so that their hearts are with us. Inshallah, they will look at Islam in a very good light. And this Da'wah Berhad is why we chose Sustainable Development Goal initiatives as a way forward to introduce Islam. So my dear guests and participants, before I end, I would like to sincerely thank all of our participants and media partners for joining this webinar. And also a last word of appreciation to the hard work of the organizing committee. We sincerely hope today's webinar has been fruitful to all, not only for the knowledge gained and exposure to Qalbun leadership, but also the feeling of togetherness and brotherhood among us. We shall be, inshallah, very valuable for our networking in future endeavors together. And lastly, let us finish today's program by invoking our deep sense of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by saying the lafaz of tahmid, or thanks to the Lord of the worlds. Together, let us say, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Barakallahu fiikum ya Syekh.
Thank you very much for such significant closing speech, Tuan Haji Wan Ahmad Niza. With that, we have reached to the end of our webinar. A friendly reminder to all the participants, e-certificate will be given by email, so make sure to fill in the Google form. On behalf of the committee, I would like to express our gratitude to all participants across the world for being with us today, despite time differences, mashallah, mashallah. And many apologies for any shortcomings on our part. So thank you very much, and I hope to see all of you again in the future. Insha'Allah ta'ala, that's all from us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Jazakallah khairan.
Assalamualaikum. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Waalaikumsalam. Terima kasih ya. Thank you very
Terima
much.
kasih.
Assalamualaikum.
Alhamdulillah.
Very, very interesting. The topic
Tahniah
today.
Usim.
Allah Hafiz.
Tahniah.
Ya, RDC.